All right, all right. Welcome to episode 783. I am joined by, we had a joke before, Brain Steele with an E, but
Brain
it's
Steele.
actually former U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Brian Steele with no E. We worked that out, but a little joke amongst us. But thanks for coming, Brian. We've been looking forward to having you on.
Brother, thanks for having me. I've been excited for this for months.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you. We met you a couple of years ago. It's good to finally get you in here. I know you're a busy guy. So before we get started here, we'll just read Brian's bio. We'll talk more about this as we go along. So Brian is a dedicated law enforcement professional, Marine Corps veteran, and labor leader with over 2 decades of service to his country and the community. Brian began his career in the United States Marine Corps in 1997, serving as a military police corrections specialist and as a member of the Marine Embassy Group, formerly MSGBN, where he upheld security and diplomat missions worldwide. After his military service, he transitioned to a career in policing, serving as a police officer for 23 years, 19 of which have been with the Columbus Division of Police, currently holding the rank of lieutenant. Brian has been instrumental in shaping officer advocacy and public safety policy as the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Capital City Lodge Number 9, representing over 4,500 members. Additionally, he serves on the board of trustees for the Ohio Police and Pension Fund, as well as serving as a registered lobbyist for the Fraternal Order of Police of Ohio. Committed to lifelong learning, Brian holds an associate degree in criminal justice from County College of Morris, a bachelor's in business administration from Ohio Dominican University, and a master's in public administration from Ohio University. Additionally, has earned a certificate in African American Studies from Sinclair College, reflecting his dedication to understanding and serving diverse communities. Thank you for having me. You sound really special right now. I'm honored to have you here. Wow.
It's so cringe hearing you read that.
No. I just started. It's only the second time I've read the bio. I kind of like it because I can feel it's like when you get your bio read back about it, you're kind of like, whoa. Yeah, that's a good one. I like it.
Well, I appreciate it.
And if I would only read it before, I wouldn't ask you the question how many members were at the FOP, but we got that now.
Yeah, so all good. 4,500.
Well, thanks for coming on. We'll start off. We always love having Marines, so we'll have hopefully have some good Marine jokes coming on.
Yep, gotta have them.
I got rid of the Navy flag, the Air Force flag, but we'll rep the Marines this week. So this is a quote from Kevin Keeney. It says, "You cannot exaggerate about the Marines. They are convinced to the point of arrogance that they are the most ferocious fighters on earth. And the amusing thing about it is they are." So
yeah, love that.
Get your props on that.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're like, yeah, that's cool. So, well, thanks for coming on. Like I said, episode 73.
That's awesome.
So let's start off like we always do. Let's talk about growing up. So you got a pretty interesting childhood. Hopefully we can talk more about that. Never knew your dad?
Never knew my father. Yeah. Biological father, never knew him. No, mom was about 20 years old. My mom's still alive now. Great relationship, wonderful woman, strong woman, independently strong woman. 20 years old, had a child out of wedlock. He was never in my life, so I never got to see him. He was in and out of prison, wasn't the best person in the world. About 8 years ago, I got a phone call saying, "Hey, your biological dad killed himself." So at first I was like, okay, couldn't care less. Like, why are you telling me? A family member told me, and I said, great. So at the time I was working the FOP, and I walked up to the president at the time, and I'm like, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Because I don't know who to say this to, right? I'm not going to talk to my mom about it. My wife doesn't really know the background like that. I just found out. So I did some research, got a hold of a detective down in Florida. I'm thinking, well, man, maybe this dude was loaded. Maybe he's leaving me a yacht or something. He shot and killed himself in a 1-bedroom apartment in Broward County, and was a drug dealer. Recently got caught, didn't want to go back. And, he did what someone kind of cornered would do in that situation. Either way, I don't tell that as a sob story. I just tell it as, look what I've done for a living, right? You might have had a raw deal and maybe a single family fan hold, but was able to maybe kind of turn it around. Because I had strong grandparents. I was raised by off-the-boat immigrant Scottish grandparents, best people in the world. And they're where I learned so much, moral compass, life, you name it. And it set me on a path to where I am today.
So the good stuff, what was some of the bad stuff about getting raised by first generation?
So little tough, very heavy-handed, right? There was no talking back. To this day, I don't say what. If you say my old man, I called my grandpa dad or big man. Your size, big guy. You're not tiny when you have a name, big man. But if he said Brian, I would never say what, because you caught one right across the head. You better say yes, dad, or yes, father. So some of the struggles: alcoholic household, alcoholic his whole life. He'd always say, "I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a drunk. Alcoholics go to meetings." supposed to be funny. It's not. Or he'd say,
yeah, especially the comedian man now.
No,
I haven't heard that one in a long time, but yeah.
I know, but he did what that generation did. And the stereotypical Scottish, you went to work, came home, you just crushed drinks. You went to work the next day, crushed drinks, just functional alcoholic. And it's to this day, I do enjoy a drink, but I definitely watch that. I keep an eye on that. And we were talking offline before. I recently slowed down drinking lately. I'll still have a drink. I love a drink, but it was more kind of, I don't want to say controlling me yet. I just got to the point where I'm like, all right, let's start pulling back. And I'm glad I could do that. Yeah. A lot of people cannot do that. So
yeah, I'm on my, like you and I were talking before, and I've shared it before, is I've only had 3 drinks since like December 27th. So cut back a lot. That's a lot, and not like I was drinking a lot either, but it is like, that's one thing that as I was talking to people about it who really struggle with it, like being able to do that. They're the people that do struggle with it and are alcoholics. They can't do that. And I can have, you can see down here, there's tons of alcohol around, and I'm just not,
sure.
Not pulled to it, which is, I'm blessed to have that. I can't complain about that, but
yeah, no,
so that's good. Yeah. Hopefully we could have a couple of drinks.
Yeah,
I haven't had a drink on the podcast in a while, so it'll be exciting. So let's talk about growing up more. So, are you the only grandchild they're raising, or other kids involved? Or
so I had a great childhood, but very non-traditional childhood, and the more I think of it, pretty effed up childhood. So I'll tell you the dynamic I grew up in. I grew up in Wayne, New Jersey. I thought my house was a mansion. I thought I had the biggest yard in the world. It was about 1,000 square feet. It was filled with happiness. It was filled with love. Our house was the house. Everybody came over to eat, to drink. My grandparents were very generous, but I grew up with my aunt who lived with us, who was schizophrenic, a lot of mental health issues, epileptic. So as a kid, I remember at the dinner table, my aunt would just, she would go off always talking to herself, yelling at the wall. That was normal to me, right? That's normal. She would kind of maybe sometimes drop and go into seizures. And my old man, I remember, even as a kid, I just be eating my mashed potatoes and he's sticking his finger down her mouth, holding her tongue, right? I'm no doctor, but you're not supposed to do that. But again, to me, my childhood was normal. As I got older, I'm like, man, that was not normal at all.
Like, when did you start seeing that,
when I started getting out more towards high school, you start going over, when you get a little older, you go eat dinner at other kids' house. You're like, this ain't like my house. There's no one smoking non-filtered small Pall Malls, drinking scotch and a lady screaming at the walls. But like I said, loved my aunt, loved my family. I wouldn't have changed everything, helped kind of make it what it is. My mom got married when I was about 6, and I have a half brother and half sister. So again, very close to my mom, but never lived with her, never wanted to, nothing against her. My grandparents was my house. Nobody wants to leave their home.
Yeah. It's interesting when I talk about, I've shared a lot. My mom was, had some mental issues. So like when you were around, she kind of kept everybody kind of tight. We were kind of tight in that group. And yeah, when you got a little bit older, you started realizing wasn't that bad, but it's just how things happen. You're like, wow, because there was a lot of love, but there's also a lot of like super highs, super lows, right? That's the hard thing to, it took me a long time to understand. It's like a lot of like real highs and a lot of real lows that when you're a young kid, it seems normal, but then all of a sudden you go to somebody else's house and, no one's yelling at each other and everyone's very normal and just these behaviors that you saw, you're like. And for me, it was interesting because that was a struggle, because the other thing is my mom would be very conscious that, like, she'd come back and be like, what was it like there? And like, I felt like sometimes with my mom, if it seemed like too nice, like my mom would like make me cut that relationship out, or she'd find some fault and why you can't go over there. And we never had anybody spend the night either. I don't know if that's our generation, but like nobody came over. Like it was strange. Like I always think about that. There was no I think I had like one sleepover and I was like 11.
Sure.
And it did not go well. Yeah. It was like, Josh is over there laughing, but but like it was because I think it kept my mom was able to like hide what was going on. She didn't want anybody to know, the craziness. And then like, I sure as heck wasn't going to tell anybody either. It was kind of a weird thing. So. Sure.
And generational too. When we were younger, when it got dark, everybody went home.
Yeah.
Beat it. Everybody's got to go. I knew my old man would yell, it would whistle. I can't whistle. I can't do that strong whistle, but I'd be 2 blocks away. You'd hear that whistle because it's getting dark. You beeline home as quick as you can.
You didn't yell, what? No.
Yeah, you yell what? Yeah. So Scottish, he had a very strong brogue accent. He'd always say, "Come here, so I give you a dunt in the lug." And you just, it's probably why I have some head trauma from this day. TBIs from my old man's bear paw across my head.
They're trying to figure out how it happened in the Marine Corps and the police department. Like, that's not how it happened, but that's fine.
Yeah.
No, but so what were you like though? You had that stuff going on. You said there was a lot of love, a lot of dysfunction, a lot of some things that What were you like growing up? Being a big sports guy, what were you doing growing up?
A little bit of both. So, when I was younger, I played sports. I played soccer. I'd go in and play football in middle school and high school. Kind of, old man never came to a game. Grandma never came to a game. He never came to a game. It just wasn't his thing. Like it was, hey, good luck tomorrow, but he never came. Grandma would never come because she, said I didn't like to see Brian on the bottom of the pile, like type stuff. But my mom would come as much as she can. She also had to work, and she had the two little half brother and sister at the time, so they would try to come. But played sports. Being a Jersey kid, a really stereotypical Jersey kid who liked to fight. That's what you did in Jersey. You had a bike, you kept your bike. If not, someone's going to steal your bike. And then if you wanted a bike, you better go steal somebody else's bike and beat them up. And I tell my kids now, being bougie, like Worthington Hills kids, I'm like, you know what? You'll never know the feeling of trying to keep your bicycle.
I mean, you could run a sting. You could have like the neighborhood kid just take the bike from him and say, I'm going to pay you $100 to steal my kid's bike and see what he does about it.
Statute of limitations are up on all this stuff. And it was all juvenile offenses. So my lawyer said, make sure I throw that out there. But
it was a different time. How old are you?
I'm going to be 47 next month.
Yeah, so we're close. I'm 52.
Yep.
But yeah, that same time, it was a little different time. So just talking about. I was listening to somebody talking about that and we talked about before too. Is that once you went everywhere, like you just had to, you had the freedom to do all these things, and then like you're right, it was a certain time, like 9 o'clock, you better be home. And you just went home. I mean, like nobody was like worried about where you were, and like the stuff we were doing. It was just like. It was great. I mean, not having the phone, and I find myself, I'm even worse about like you're worried about the kids still. Mine are all grown, but you're like, did you get there yet? All this kind of stuff. I'm like, meanwhile, I'm riding down the highway on a bike, not a bike that I stole. My own bike, but
oh, you look like the guy that took my bike.
I'm driving down like on the middle of the highway, and nobody knew. You know what I mean? And
miles away from home. Yeah, with a pack of Pall Mall cigarettes you stole from your old man. Yeah, and I grew up outside New York City, about 15 miles. So turning into high school, it was take grandma's caravan, and we're in some club in Lower Manhattan. Yeah, that'll be a whole new thing we'll talk about after this. We're progressing.
Yeah, you're jumping right into New York City.
Yeah.
Early 90s, right? Like I can only imagine. So like, sports. So when did you get the bug for the military? When did you decide that was going to be your path?
Didn't really have a whole lot of interest. When I'm in high school, I remember the recruiters coming along. I remember an Army recruiter came, and we went to I was about 17. I went to the local armory, and I'm going to do it no justice. It wasn't a tank. It looked like a tank, but a tank moves and fires. It was like mobile artillery. And I remember he's like, hey, jump in the back. And he jumped in the back and closed the door. And I'm like, you had big guys. I'm like, this ain't going to work for me, man. I fart in this thing. I'm going to die. Get me out. So I remember my mom was very against military and made me a plate of eggs with like this little tiny thing of scrambled eggs. And she's like, that's what you're going to get. So if military wasn't in the cards, I ended up, my grandparents came to this country, started in a slaughterhouse. My grandpa worked his way as a meat packer, butcher, that ended up owning a deli and a restaurant. So I was going to go into the restaurant business. They owned a small pub, and went to county college. Think my first semester, 4 Fs and a D. My second semester, I'm sitting there in class, and I looked at this kid next to me who keeps getting A's. And I'm like, hey, man, I'm failing every class here. I go, how are you getting A's? And he's like, oh, well, I just got out of the Marines, and, I see things a little bit different. I'm like, Marines, aren't you guys stupid? Like, how are you getting A's? Yeah. And he was kind of like, well, yeah, most of us still are. But he's like, I learned a little discipline. I learned, if assignment's due Tuesday at 2:00, that means it's due Tuesday at 2:00. So I remember I was like, hey, can I get that kid's number? I was the Marine Corps recruiter's dream. Failing college, fighting with my parents, or my grandparents daily, who I'll just keep referring to as my parents because we work together. You work a family business. I think I got fired or quit every other day. And then you just came back. Again, toxic as hell relationship, but loved them to death, and broke up with my girlfriend. So I literally walked in the Marine office, and they're like, okay, you're failing out of school, broke up with your girlfriend, hate your parents, you want to travel, you like to fight? Let's go, kid. They're like, you want to join? I didn't know anything about it. There was no internet then. Yeah. They showed you a couple catalogs. And at the time, it was peacetime.
Yeah.
So they're like, hey, do you want to do infantry? Do you want to do artillery? And they're like, you're going to train. I was like, I don't know. That sounds okay. But I was never a woods guy, right? I'm a proud Marine. I'm an air winger. So my son, who's infantry, loves it. He was an Ohio boy hunter. My idea of a good time is not to go in a tree stand at 3 a.m., cover myself in deer piss, and go hunting, right? I'd rather be at
and try to be quiet the same way.
I'd rather be at the club in New York City. So they're like, hey, there's this military police. You can go. We'll give you live ammo. You know, you can go travel on all over. We can get you on a boat. I knew nothing, which came to fruition that first day of boot camp when I was like, oh, shit. This is not what I thought.
This was not in the brochure.
No, I'm so dumb. Like Paris Island. I'm like, oh, it sounds great. I'll eat a croissant. I literally, but you remember, we just had a couple pamphlets back then.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think there were some movies you could have
Full Metal Jacket.
You could have got a better idea, but like, I think there was definitely like, there wasn't like it is now where you could be like, that is a great thing about the internet. Like you can find out more, you know. It's got sad when people are, leaving reviews for like toilet paper, but like you can find out anything, right? Like they need to know. But yeah, back then it was like brochures, and then it was like some like grainy video, you know what I mean? That's like and then it was never, and then there was really never like somebody talking about it, like like a podcast going like, oh, let me tell you about Marine Corps. Now it's like all that stuff is out there. So
Chuck Norris, Delta Force, Commando, Rambo, Full Metal Jacket. It's not like now there's Lone Survivor, Zero Dark 30, kind of a little more modern. We can get understanding, but knew nothing about military police, knew nothing about corrections. I didn't even know the Marine Corps had a brig. You sign up for military police, you graduate boot camp, they're like, hey, you're going to go work in a brig. I was like, okay, what the hell is that?
I feel like that's got to get a lot of use for the Marines, though.
Like you guys. You know what? Most of these dudes were good dudes. Like there are some, bad guys, but most of them were just good dudes who just did something stupid, And I probably related more with some of the dudes in the brig because I was a hellion as a kid. I was a product of juvenile justice, and I was kind of like, hey, man, sucks you got caught, dude. Let me give you an extra, piece of bacon and some extra milk here.
Yeah. So let's go back to growing up. I mean, so and now where you're at now, you came up with a pretty tough childhood. Like, do you think that, how did your upbringing, it was a good part of it. A lot of, turmoil going on, dysfunction, alcohol in the house. How do you think that shaped your mental toughness or your resilience, in the Marine Corps and then just later on in life?
Definitely thick skin in my family to this day. My uncles, my cousins, you sit around a table, you got to have thick skin. And even growing up, and if they made a comment to you or made fun of you and they let you knew it got to you, it wouldn't stop. And that helped me in the Marines. That helps me as a police officer, just being around the table. I had my tribe. Even I had a group of best friends that I'm friends with to this day. And I always had that kind of tribal mentality, whether it was the football friends, my buddies growing up, and that carried over great into the Marine Corps, carried over into the police department. And I've always seeked kind of groups like that. Yeah.
So let's go back before we get in the Marine Corps and keep moving on. Best story going to New York City as a high school kid.
Buddy there. So I will say the best one, and I'm going to have some buddies that will attest to this. We go out. I decide to start playing rugby, and I'm about 17. And I lied. I played on adult league. Told them I was, older. And one of the bartenders in my parents' restaurant was also a probation officer, and he's the one that I went to. And I'm like, hey, I want to come play in his team. So I bring all my friends to the USS Intrepid in Manhattan. We go to this rugby fundraiser. We're drinking. We're all 17. We end up meeting these Italian sailors and get absolutely hammered with them, drinking these vats of wine. Shit hammered. Shirts off, hooping and hollering. We're walking back to the parking lot, and there's a group of guys that turn out to be NYPD cadets. We didn't know. And they made a comment, and then it was on. Ended up beating the living piss out of all these guys. And then running full speed, I forget my hat. So I got to go back and get my hat because I got to basically hide the evidence. So I go back and end up getting pulverized by like 10 guys. Here comes my tribe. Now they're breaking out pepper spray, hitting with chairs. Still beat the piss out of them. Take off, hit and run. My buddy just creams a car. And now we're like, let's get out of New York City back to New Jersey. Everything's cool. The next day, I wore a clatter ring. I can't get my ring off because my fingers are completely swollen. My old man, I was late for work because I was working at the restaurant. And he's like, what the hell is wrong with you? And I tell him the story. So he's like, all right. We're gonna have to hash this out. The bartender, who's a probation officer, shows up to a shift, and he's like, "Hey, dude, the cops are looking for you guys. Those were New York City police officers, recruits. you cannot come to rugby ever again. So that was the start and end of my rugby career. But that was normal growing up in Jersey. That was just
still
normal.
to go back to New York now after that? They're still
No, I try to stay away from that cesspool, but that was a typical Northeast Jersey suburban night with that's what you did. You got drunk and beat up a couple of cop recruits.
And he could have been, he could have been a rugby star. You never know.
Could have been. Never know.
Yeah, I feel like New York, it's like, I haven't been in a while, but I grew up about 40 minutes north. So at that time, like high school was like crazy. Like when you go down, there's always something.
Yeah, well, 40 minutes north, we're all like suburban degenerates. You said you jumped in a minivan, you go to New York. Yeah. Nobody knew. My kids can't go down the street without me tracking them. We just
we would go down there. We would make the move there. We'd actually like, that's true. You're right. You just head down there, go down there, and just do stupid shit. And
the Limelight Tunnel, there was great clubs down there.
And then just, the other thing, it was just an interesting time. Yeah, you're right, because you could go and just, you could just tell your parents, I was over in some other town. They don't know. They can't.
No idea.
Now they can't download your,
No idea. My grandma would always say, Brian's at a juice bar in New York. Yeah, I convinced her there was juice bars.
I remember my first trip to New York City. Would have been like, I think 81 or so. We're diehard Yankees fans. So it was like, we're finally going to the Yankee game. So we're rolling down in the Bronx and, trying to get to the Yankee Stadium, and a car in front of us just stops. My dad's like, cars on both sides just sitting there, and, we're like, what's going on? Where's he going? My mom's like, what's the guy doing? My dad's like, I don't know. Like, getting all irritated, like, go around him. We can't go anywhere. Like, what's the guy doing? Like, 5 minutes later, the guy comes out, liquor store thing, just like stopped in the middle of the road. My dad was like,
no,
this is rough. And then we go to Yankee Stadium. We're over the upper deck, like these seats. And like, my dad's like, someone's like, I smell marijuana. And we look up there, the guys who were smoking weed up in the upper deck of Yankee Stadium. And my dad, it was not what we expect. My parents were from Iowa. So it was like, that was like, my parents were like, we can't, like, I don't remember my mom. Actually, that's true. My mom would go down to haggle. Like my mom actually liked to go down the Canal Street and like haggle for like a fake Coach purse.
Canal was great.
My mom loved that shit. Like going down there and arguing and haggling over some fake, fake something.
Yeah, or you can get a kicker for your car, bazooka tube. You got it all down there.
It used to be the bomb going down
there. It's the best.
I've been in a while, but so you head off the Marine Corps.
So
did they give you a bonus for that MOS though?
I didn't get anything. No, and I left quick. I originally enlisted, and the first they're like, hey, only spots right now are these reserve spots, and I wanted to leave, so I joined the reserves for like 2 weeks, never went, and then about 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, they said, hey, good news, we have an active duty spot. This is like on a Wednesday or Thursday. They said the bad news is you ship off Monday. So I literally came home and like, well, changed my mind. I'm going active, and I leave Monday. But best decision I ever made. Best.
Yeah, so you go off, you're doing corrections, but you also did some stuff like, embassy work. What was that like being an embassy Marine?
So the way the provost marshal's office works, at least in the Marine Corps, it's like a sheriff's office. So I started in the brig, and then at the time my gunnery sergeant's like, hey, we're a little short. Do you want to go work the road? Want to work the gate? You got to do some extra training. I said, yeah, no problem. And that's how I did my whole Marine Corps career. If somebody just asked me to do something, roger that, or aye, gunny. And one day the same gunner, he started to walk by and he goes, hey, the MSG battalion screening team's coming. You're going to go see him. What do you say when an E7 says something to you? Yeah, aye, gunny. I don't even know what these guys were. So it turns out the Marine Security Guard Battalion is now Marine Embassy Security Group. They safeguard the U.S. missions, the consulates, and the embassies all over the country. So I went down and screened with them. There was about 10 of us. 2 of us ended up making it. And it's a very small component of the Marine Corps. You're attached to the State Department. Hardest school I've ever been to. It's they do try to weed you out, and there is a method for their madness because you're relatively small. You're on your own. Mm-hmm. So for example, when I went to Niamey, Niger, which I knew nothing of, I thought it was in Niamey. And I remember the master sergeant who was doing the selection said, hey, do you want to go to Niamey? And I'm like, what is Niamey? He goes, well, you ever been to Miami? And I'm like, well, no. And he's like, well, sounds similar. It can't be much different. It was a lot different. Nobody knew where Niger was until a couple of years ago when, unfortunately, a couple of your guys were killed there and nobody knew. So I was there in 98, 99. Life-changing. I was so dumb. I think, most Americans, we think of Africa, we think of a continent. We don't realize it's a country. And I'm like, okay. I'm thinking, well, one, maybe it looks like Miami because Miami sounds similar. or maybe I'm going to have a piff helmet with some dude, Nigel, hunting like, the buffalo.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. It's more like kind of like Sally Struthers, pot belly stomachs, second most poorest country in the world. These people in Niger have nothing, right? Like literally take a bath in a puddle. Life-changing. One of the reasons I see things through the lenses I see now is because of my, roughly 18 months.
Yeah. How old were you then?
I turned 21 there. So I would have been 20 when I landed. I turned 21 there for my birthday. There was only 5 Marines in the whole country, 5 enlisted and 1 staff NCO who didn't live with us. So there were 6. The Marines live in the Marine House. It's a little compound right next to the embassy. The staff sergeant at the time lived a little bit away. And 21st birthday, they threw a party. And it was nothing but 2 kind of beers there, Flag and Beer Niger, and got a bunch of Peace Corps girls to come. So I had a great 21st birthday.
There you go.
There
you go. So you said, you've seen the severe poverty, something, never exposed to. Again, at the time, not a lot of, documentaries going on about, what's going on there. But like, what was that like? What was the biggest, you said it changed you. Why did it change you so much?
So this country, and we won't go down too far rabbit hole, but this country is the only country where poor people are fat, right? You've been overseas to some of these third world countries. Poor people are not fat in these countries. They literally have nothing. And, I kind of think like, man, I got a stocked fridge. It's everything my grandparents would talk about. Like, we give away clothes. You're giving away clothes for the kids in Africa. Eat all your dinner because there's poor kids in Africa that don't have the dinner. Just stuff as a kid. I remember my parents saying, well, I actually got to see it. Yeah. I mean, and plus the struggles in that country. There was a coup when I was there. The president was assassinated. It was just, the whole country was thrown upside down. And here I am, a 20-year-old kid, on the roof with nothing but a shotgun and a gas gun. And they're like, hey, they might storm the embassy. You're going to protect it. I remember thinking, there's 5 of us. Got a shotgun. What am I protecting? Somebody get me out of here. But thank God, nothing ever happened to us.
What was the average age, all you guys, you think?
Oh, I'd say 20 to 22. I got there as a Lance Corporal, picked up Corporal. The rest were a couple corporals and sergeants. Yeah, all 20 to 22. Still talk to every one of those guys to this day. Lifelong friends. Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, you look back at the things, when you're in the military, how young you were doing things and the things you were exposed to at such a young age are like the amount of responsibility or just like what you see. It's always like,
yeah,
I could barely. And now, I'm worried about my 24-year-old move to Groveport here soon.
Sure.
I mean, how that's going to get, I'm all stressed out about that. I'm like, the hell, I drove, like, what the hell's wrong with us?
Yeah.
We've gotten soft. I think we've gotten as soft as the parents, man.
It just changed. I mean, the U.S. ambassador, would there be certain villages he'd meet, and the regional security officer is a State Department agent, and they say, hey, I need to bring a couple of Marines with me to protect the ambassador. And again, you're 20 years old, and you're assigned to a U.S. ambassador. There's 20-year-olds I wouldn't trust to work the copy machine at the FOP, but you're doing a lot at a young age, as you know.
I got a 20-year-old. I don't know if I'd let him work the copier. I don't know if I'd be like, hey, go protect the ambassador. Maybe, I don't know. It's pretty tough. You might be able to pull it off. But so you do that for 18 months, you said?
I did that. And then after that, I went to Stockholm, Sweden, which was a
little bit
better. They asked me where you want to go, and you kind of get a wish list. I've already been I was in Lackland, Texas, South Carolina, Yuma, Arizona, Niamey, Niger. I said, I don't care. As long as it's not hot, as long as there's no sand. So they're like, well, Helsinki, Finland, Oslo, Norway, Stockholm, Sweden. I said, any one of those will do. And I got Stockholm. And it was the best and worst thing to ever happen in my career. And I say the worst thing because you're not enlisting after spending a tour in Stockholm, Sweden.
Why is that?
There's nowhere the Corps could have sent me that was better than Stockholm, Sweden.
Yeah.
So that's how I chose to get out.
That's a good point. I mean, that's gotta be a good. That's gotta be a great place. I mean, great weather. Like, I mean, beautiful country.
It was awesome. The weather, the friends. I still have friends to this day. Local friends there to this day. Definitely, you worked and you played. You worked hard and you play hard. And, I got to do a lot of good stuff. I got to meet a lot of great people. Embassy duty is a phenomenal job. It is a great job. You learn to talk to everybody, having the background in the bar and then going to the embassy duty where as a corporal or sergeant, you can have a conversation with a 4-star. As you know, you're never doing that. Most guys don't even see a colonel on a base, and you're having a conversation with an admiral, a 4-star, a senator. It's just amazing. And it helped me now to where I am to have conversation with almost anybody. because they're all people with the same problems we have, regardless of how many stars on them.
Yeah. And I mean, the mission, I mean, two different embassies, two different things. So it must have been, but yeah, a lot more time to play in Sweden, you know, see Europe. And that seems like a good sign, man. Usually we talk about the shitties, but you're going with your other embassy duties, the worst place the Marine Corps sent you.
So yeah, DMA was definitely as you know, you talk about some of the worst places, some of the best memories. So, I mean, it was technically the worst place you can go, but so I had such a good group of Marines there and we made the best of it. And we were so tight. Where Stockholm is, you know, you get a girlfriend. Now you don't live on a compound. We lived in a regular house in a really nice area, a house I can never afford. Most of us can. So it was good or bad for different reasons.
Yeah. And I was laughing about that. We talked about that before. It's like when you're there, it's the worst time. Like this sucks. But then like 5 minutes after you leave, you're talking shit about, and then like 30 years later, you're like, have all these like grandiose stories about, like I could not imagine having to go to like JRTC or NTC. And I was just looking at a video of like jumping out of an airplane. I'm like, I don't think I could do that right now. I mean, I could, as long as I didn't have to land, or I could land in like, you know, like a stuntman pillow. But I'm like, I got no desire to do that stuff anymore. But at the time it was, that's, you know, it's your best of time, worst of times, right?
Sure.
I think it's a lot of how that military and the warrior class is. A lot of our worst moments are somehow the best ones too.
Because 100%.
Just the bonds you make, you know, what you learn about yourself. Things like that. So after Sweden, you decide you're done.
I decided to get
the
out.
Marine Corps. You don't want to go, you know, Paris Island. You know,
that was my B billet in the Marine Corps, or recruiting, embassy duty, or drill instructor. If I wanted to stay in, I could have had a you know probably good career. I already had my B billet knocked out of the way. Most don't get to do their B billet to maybe their second enlistment. I did extend. So I did one enlistment, but I extended 9 months in order to do the embassy duty, and it was worth it. I got out September 24th, 2001, but I took a 30-day school cut. So this is where the policing kind of came in. I took a 30-day school cut.
So when did you get out? September
24th, 01 is when I was supposed to get out. I took a 30-day. I enrolled in local college, so they let me out a month early. So October 24th. So I was home on terminal leave when 9/11 happened, and I'm in Northeast New Jersey. And 9/11 was an impactful event, especially for someone in New York, New Jersey. Yeah. So it really hit home when.
So what was that like? I mean, was there any desire to go back in the Marine Corps? I mean, what were you thinking at that time?
Yeah. So when that happened, I was going to college. I was on terminal leave, and I was working construction. Already knew construction was not for me, right? I mean, I think every man should work construction and wait tables, just to wait tables to realize how terrible some people are, and construction to see what a real day of work is like, because that motivated me to stay in school. When the towers went down, and being in Northeast New Jersey, and you could see the smoke from the towers, and fighter pilots at the time over the radio and commercials, they said, hey, any active duty military, report back to your base. So I called down to Quantico, where my headquarters was, and I explained, hey, I just left, 2 weeks ago. What do I do? And they said, go to your nearest reserve station. So I showed up to our near Picatinny Arsenal, said, hey, my name is Sergeant Steele. I'm still in, but I'm on terminal leave. What do I do? Typical military fashion. Come here, bring all your stuff, issue this full geared loadout, like, hey, we're going to war, boys. And then, 8 hours later, all right, turn all your stuff in, go home, we'll call you. And then never called, never needed. I kept calling, what do I do? What do I do? The orders clerk down at MSG Battalion, he's like, unless we call you, just enjoy your life, go back to school. That's when I first decided that, the calling for military at post 9/11, military, police, fire. Well, I just got out of the military. Police, I have a hat on right now. I wear pomade in my hair. I have beautiful pomade locks. I can't be a fireman, right? This thing would go up like a Roman candle. So I'm like, hey, I'm going to go.
Throw off a good stash now.
Yeah.
You get a good fireman mustache.
Right? Yeah. No, listen, my best friend is the president of the local fire union. I love fire jokes. They do an amazing job. It's not for me. I'm not running a fire. But I'm like, you know what? I like to fight. I worked a bouncer at the door of my parents' place at times. I could grab a grown man and handle him. Maybe I'll go be a cop. And that's when I chose to be a police officer. Took some tests, got hired by a department in New Jersey. Again, no lifelong dream to be a cop. It kind of just worked at the time. So you leave the Marine Corps and the military at a certain time, kind of pivotal time in American history. There's got to be that you see, some of your
fellow Marines going. You know, we start a 21-year war at that point. You know what I mean? What was it like? What was the hardest part about you leaving the Marine Corps? Was it, you know, leaving behind your friends? Was it, you know, leaving behind your identity, the title of being a Marine? I know you guys always keep it, but what was, you know, and then on top of seeing what's going on, you know, you were in a peacetime Marine Corps. Now the real shit's happening and you kind of get left out. So what's going on?
Very, very tough. And it took me, it took years for me to kind of get over this. And this is probably the first time I really actually opened up and talked about it, especially to people I don't know. I've talked to close buddies. So yeah, so you're in the Corps, and even though, you know, military, police, embassy duty, you're always trained. You want to do something, right? You want to get involved. I didn't know there was a war. No, there was no crystal ball. We didn't know we were going to have to go in Iraq, Afghanistan. I just got out. So now it was always the pull. Well, what do I do? I'm in college. I get hired by a police department. Do I go this route now and just like, hey, I served my time and now just finish my education, finish my career, or just my career I just started? And then I went back to the reserves. I went to a unit at a Red Bank. There was a motor T unit. I heard they were going to deploy. I was like, hey, let me try to get to that unit. I showed up the first day. They were just kind of like jerk offs, the guys. I remember this once, the sergeant's like, oh, you're an MSG, so you're just going to stand at this door with this buzzer all weekend and make sure nobody comes in. And I'm like, well, that's beat. Like, and I just wasn't treated very well. And you know, when you're active, and most guys that were active went to reserve, they're two different components. And they're very different. And mentally, I was not prepared for that. So I said, forget it. We're not going to go there. I wouldn't go back in reserves to about 2007. I went back to the provost marshal's office down in Quantico. And at that time, I was ready, like, let's go. Failed marriage, but I had 2 kids. And the body count, if you remember, 2007 was super high. I'm already a police officer in Columbus, working not an easy paper route in Columbus. And that's when I kind of decided this has passed me. This is not my time. My trajectory is the Marines, or is staying a police officer. But it took a lot to go over that. But I remember talking to one of my buddies who did a lot in the Marines, a lot in Fallujah. And I remember telling him, I said, man, you got to do all this stuff. And, you know, I didn't. And it really like was ripping me up inside. And I remember he told me, he goes, you did what you were supposed to do when you were supposed to do it, you know, and the way, just hearing it from him, someone who did so much and saw so much, it kind of validated that. Yeah. Like, thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Cause I think it's interesting. We had a lot, you know, we've had people that were, you know, peacetime service, you know, war, but it's a common thing that you always talk about that missed it. It's like, you miss something. It's like, it's hard to explain to someone who's not in, but it's like, you know, you practice, and then they finally, you know, the real game happens and you miss it. And then you start, you know, there is that, like our ego, we want to look good. We want to, you know, all these other kind of things that happen. And like I said before, like your friend told you, like it's meant to be, right. I mean, you're still here. I mean, something else could happen. And it's not all that glorious, man. It's really not that,
no, listen, I think too, maybe I like to say I kept some of my innocence that maybe my buddy who's a Fallujah doesn't have, but I could tell you after 2 decades of policing, there's no innocence anymore. So I'm now I'm trying to unpack shit I dealt with. And I'm kind of glad now I don't have that additional what you guys have, if that makes sense. But that's why I got kind of weird when you asked my bio or you asked my awards. I told you, hey, no John Basilone, no Audie Murphy. I don't even want to tell you what I had because it's nothing.
No, I mean, it's just to talk about stuff. I mean, like we'll talk into. It's always just I mean, I'm glad you finally got it to me because you know I was like, he didn't send me anything I asked him for, but that's okay. We'll see what happens here. But
ADD, and I went to County College.
Good. He's a Marine. You gotta ask the Marines again. It's okay. Easy Marine.
Should have wrote it in crayon. I'd understood it better.
No, it's good, but yeah, it is a weird time. So like, I mean, so you head to the Mountain Lakes, New Jersey Police Department. So where's Mountain Lakes at?
Parsippany, New Jersey is it's probably about 30 minutes west of Manhattan. I started in Mountain Lakes. What's funny, Mountain Lakes at the time was 14 officers, 13, or at the time there's 14 officers, 13 Marines. The chief was a Marine and all he hired was Marines. And it was awesome. And then I did some work on a narcotics task force, and a couple guys were from a neighboring department. And at the time, the department was just trying to recruit guys, kind of heavy hitters, guys that like to be the police and do police work. And I left, and I kind of learned the grass isn't always greener. I left a good place for my second department and hated it. Hated every single day of it. You know, biggest mistake I ever made. And then how I got to Ohio was I met a girl from Ohio. I met her in New Jersey. Had a relationship, very short, about 3 months. I remember saying something along the lines of, "Yeah, I don't think this is going to work out." And she's like, "I'm pregnant." And being a Catholic kid, never knew his dad. I was like, "Well, I guess I'm moving to Ohio." So, because that's where she was coming back, and we have two children together. Very short marriage, but that's how I got here. And that's a whole nother chapter.
And then that's a good way to get to Ohio, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean,
so what'd you think about moving to Ohio first?
I was we started up in Mountain Lakes, an SRT team, special reaction team, and there was about 30 of us from all over the area. They sent us out here to Columbus, and that's how I knew Columbus, and that's how I ended up talking to my ex-wife. I said, my buddy's like, "Hey, this girl's from Ohio." And I said, "Oh, I love Ohio." And she's like, "Nobody loves Ohio." And I said, "No, I do." I said, I just got back from Columbus. It was a really cool place. That's brought me here. I called up a guy I knew on the Columbus Police Department. I told him the story I just told you, and he was like, "Hey, man, we're hiring. Get over here." So I think I came out about 7 or 8 times. Came out here just to be in my son's life, and ended up. I truly love Columbus. I love this area. You cannot pay me to go back to the East Coast. I don't even want to visit. My wife, Lindsay, who I've been together for 15 years, she'll tell you I'm a different person when I get to New Jersey. The accent comes, you're ready to throw down, right? It's just a different place.
Yeah, I mean, my mother-in-law still lives in New York, but she's up in we're New Jersey, Pennsylvania, so not, and it is different. But like when you go back to New York, honestly, like where I grew up, it's totally different. Like, so the climate's the same almost where I grew up here. It's very similar, right? But then in the area, it was kind of the same. Like when I was growing up, the county I lived in, Orange County, that was like, mostly firemen families and FDNY and
NYPD guys.
Yeah, so like I think like 80% of people that were like,
yeah.
So but now you go back and it's kind of run down. Like a lot of it is like not what I remember. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's a different part. But there's something about New York and New Jersey. It's like your blood pressure goes up a little bit. Yeah. Everyone's a little bit.
Yeah.
But I still think people are friendly there, though. I mean, to some extent. You know what I mean? But it's just a different vibe. Like, you know what I mean? It's fun though, a little bit to go visit and then you're back out. You know what I mean?
It doesn't help that you're in Columbus Airport and you got some of the nicest people. Then you land in Newark, New Jersey, and some TSA Dominican lady is screaming at you in broken English, and you're like, my blood pressure starts already. That's why my wife said, you just change when we get here, so Brian.
My brother-in-law lives in nowhere. Like I'm big into Nike shoes now, so like my brother-in-law has a pair on, and we're in the middle of nowhere. New York. I can't say nowhere enough because there's nothing around. So we go to the one town and we're sitting there and we're just waiting for sandwiches at the deli. We've got to talk about delis. So that's a better thing. But we're standing there and and I'm not a small guy. My brother-in-law's not a small guy. This dude comes out. He's gigantic and he walks right up. He just doesn't even say anything. Looks at our shoes. He's like, "What size shoes are you?" And so I was like, "I'm a 13." My brother-in-law's like 14. He's like, "I'm an 18." And he just like walks off and we're like, my brother-in-law goes, "I think he was going to jack us." Yeah. I'm like, there's all these people around, but I was like, I still think he was going to take us. So now a friend of mine said the correct response is not your size. Instead of saying, so you don't, just in case you do say, he says, "Oh shit, I'm a 13. I'm going to take your shoes now." But that was it. I really feel like I was going to get.
Yeah, I would say, "What do you think? You're better than me?"
But now we have to say delis. Let's talk about delis because New Jersey, New York delis can't be beat.
Let's open one here and be a millionaire. I
mean, the only guy I know that's doing something similar. Have you been to Wario's?
I did. Wario's is phenomenal. It's only $20 sandwich. I will pay for it and not even regret it.
But the bread is the key. He said he's been messing around with that recipe, and that's what. I think there's the bread, like bagel places in New York and like delis, like a big deli sandwich. You've never been there? It was like a
big deli sandwich and a little coffee in that little Greek cup. Nothing better. Nothing better. Yeah, we're missing it out here.
Yeah, and there's no other place that can do it.
No, and same with diners. There's no when I grew up, it was like the Greases and the Socias. Like each area town had its own diner, and you defended that diner like your fort, and it's like kids from the other diner came to your diner, you were throwing down, or there was neutral diners that if you didn't want to fight that night, you'd go to. And
the thing I always remember about all those diners is the menu would have like you can
get shrimp scampi. Yeah. You can get oysters.
You can get shrimp scampi. You can get
or fries and
cabbage and rice. You get like a burger. Like you can just flip through the menu. Like, how the fuck are they making all this?
No. And
it was out in like 5 minutes all the time.
Yeah.
You'd be like,
And there was a lot of them had a bar. There was like this weird back room, and you saw people back there in a bar. Nothing better.
That's why it's the tuna melt. That was my like thing growing up. Having the tuna melt at the
Tuna melt at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
after drinking all night and wonder why you died
But
the
there
next
was
day.
one up in Delaware off of 23 that was kind of like that vibe. But it is an interesting. They're everywhere. It is kind of like it's a local hangout.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
same thing with delis too. Like, I mean, pizzerias were big too. You go to a certain pizzeria,
Huge.
the different like sauce or yeast strain for the.
When I go home, I don't go home much anymore just because I have my wife, my kids. It's easier just to fly my mom out here, to be honest with you. But every now and then I try to get back. But the first thing we do is get a pizza. Right off the bat, we got to get one.
Yeah, we did the breakfast sandwiches when we go back, like the
Taylor ham and cheese.
Like, yeah. Oh, man,
and a good bagel.
So that's so good.
Oh, yeah. You're talking.
I'm getting hungry again. We already had a good dinner. So you ready for a pour?
Yeah. Let's do it.
We'll take a break here. We haven't drank on the podcast in a while, so we'll hit it well. And we'll have one of my favorites. Are you a Wild Turkey fan at all? Russell's at all?
Russell's, yes. Phenomenal.
Cool. So we're gonna have a Russell's tonight. We're gonna have a Russell's pick from Opa Grill and Tavern in Delaware, which, if you don't know, has recently moved to the new spot. I haven't seen it yet, but they've been working hard to do that. So the new Opa is up and running. One of the largest bourbon selections in Ohio. That's a good plug for Genty, though. It's like you paid me to do that. But we're gonna start with Wild Turkey. This is one of the private barrel picks we did last year. 110 proof, 8 years old, 10 months. This one's actually 8 years and 10 months old. But if you don't know about Wild Turkey is in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky. The Wild Turkey brand was, is said to be arisen when a executive from Austin Nichols took some warehouse samples to a turkey hunt in 1940. The bourbon was so popular that people continued to ask for that Wild Turkey bourbon. And so in 1942, they started to bottle Wild Turkey. It's currently the home of probably the oldest master distiller, probably, right? Yeah. Jimmy Russell, who's been at Wild Turkey now for probably, I think, 64, 65 years, maybe 65 this year. He's the longest tenured active master distiller in the U.S., in the world, and he's joined by his son and then also now his grandson, Bruce. But the distillery and the brand were bought by Pernod Ricard in 1980, and then in 2009, it was bought out by the Campari Group, which bought the distillery and the brand. The single barrel program that we're going to have to start in 2013 to honor Jimmy and Eddie. And I think at the time they were the only father-son distillery team that was working. So they started doing the program in 2014, and here we are 10 years later, some of the best stuff. My only complaint about them now is they went up like $15 in price, but it's always great. So we'll bust this one open.
Sweet.
I had this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I had from my first bourbon a couple weeks ago, and then in a while, and my dad, he's not here, but he's over here. You got to hand it to Josh. Josh is on the side. He wants to try some. But I was like, what if I don't like bourbon anymore? It's been a while since I had it, but I still love it, so it's good.
That is good.
It's a good break. God, Russells are so good.
Yeah, that's really good.
So good. So, I guess we're now in Columbus now. You got a kid on the way. You're joining your third police force. Like, what is it like going from New Jersey policing to Columbus in 2005?
Yeah, so much different. I loved my time in New Jersey. And as you know, in New York, New Jersey, there's not many real big police departments. There's Newark in New Jersey, which is probably maybe a third of the size of the Columbus Police Department. There's a lot of small departments. This was a big department, almost 2,000 officers in Columbus. And I got dropped off. I was a recruit. And then after graduating academy, I went to South Linden in July. And I remember my instructor, I went to 5 Precinct, very legendary precinct, Cleveland Ave, between 5th and Hudson, east of 71. There's a saying, if it doesn't start on 5, it ends on 5. Very, very wonderful neighborhood, challenge neighborhood, high crime neighborhood, great place for a young 27-year-old rookie who just wants to get it in and do some police work. And it was just a different time there. The police tactics we did there that don't really jive too much we did now. And I remember the instructor saying you had a little piece of paper with your precinct, and he said, where are you going, Steele? And I held up 5, and he started laughing, and he was a real big black dude. And he's like, oh boy, he's like, baptism under fire, Steele. And he was right. My first day, I was like, holy cow, this is nuts. And that's what started it. And I've loved it ever since.
So 27, you're a little bit older than some of the other
Columbus
folks, or was at a normal age to start?
The average age at that time was about 30.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I had a couple years experience as a cop, but certainly I was kind of a believer, like, even though I had a couple years experience, you don't go in there, you don't know anything, you don't really even talk about it, you're just starting from scratch. Nobody likes to know it all, especially in the academy. So probably a little bit younger. There were some younger guys, but not many.
Yeah, so you don't feel like you're the age group. Yeah, I can imagine going from where you got to that, and
it was much different. So the biggest difference is a lot of times in the more suburb areas, it's more proactive. There's not as many calls for service. So you have more time, you're stopping cars, you're doing other things. When you go to a busy inner city precinct, it's just call to call. That's all you're doing, especially on second shift. You get in that car and there's a run board and you're just taking 15, 20 calls, and it's almost nonstop. But it was awesome. Absolutely loved it.
So how much did how much you think your time in the Marine Corps, short time as a policeman, how much do you think that helped prepare you for what you were diving into? Yeah, you had some guys that may have been the same age, but they, may have just been out of college or something else. Do you feel like you were a little bit mentally stronger, prepared for going into it, or did it not really help? No,
100% more mentally prepared. So the police academy, again, they're not easy. It's a militant type academy. It's not quite what the Army boot camp is, the Marine Corps boot camp, but it's still regimented, marching, being yelled at, all that stuff. I did find a military boot camp and a Marine Corps boot camp because there was nothing they could say or call me that my old man didn't call me, right? So that's what prepared me. And when I went to the police academy, so I went to police academy in New Jersey and now in Columbus, this was really my 3rd time in this shaved head, militant style academy. And by that problem, I knew the game. Yeah. Instructors come by, you smile, laugh. When they walk away, you talk shit. Like, just don't get caught. But it helped me. It truly did help me.
It is funny though, as you grow older and you realize it is a game, but at the time it was so serious. It's like you can, you look back and like, I just went back from my 30th reunion to see that in military school, and you look back and you're like, making jokes about it. But you're like, man, there's some times I was like fucking scared to death. You know what I mean? Like dealing with that, and like, there's some hazing going on, some, heavy-handed stuff. So it's like, but it's, I've done a lot of thinking here the past couple of years about this, but the funny thing is, as much as it was upsetting and difficult, it felt kind of like being in my house. It felt so comfortable because the military game and all the academies, it's like 1 minute you're doing great, the next minute you suck. Then you're great, then you suck. And like, I was like, holy shit, this is like exactly how I grew up. It's like, so it's pretty comfortable, right? Like it was like, and you'd see people that had a hard time with that. Like they couldn't understand at the game. It's like, they're going to be nice this today. Tomorrow, whatever we did is going to suck. Like you just got to get used to it. And it's like, it was so comforting to be able to do that. But you'd watch some people that just couldn't get the whole game,
And the difference between, the military and the police is guys quit. Military, you're kind of hosed. I mean, I remember in Paris Island, I said the fastest way off this island is to graduate. I'll never forget that. Right. The police academy, people quit all the time. You start off with a class of 75 and you're just whittling down the first couple of days, the guys who can't hack it. And that's fine. And sometimes the idea of it is better than the actually doing it. Right. And then it gets even worse when these guys that make it through academy, they go on coaching. We had one guy, really good dude. We went on a call. A guy ended up killing his wife and 3 kids, cut their throats, laid them all out in bed. And I remember the kid was like, I say kid, going back 20 years, went on that run. And he's like, nope. And I don't blame him. I don't mock him. I don't make fun of him. You could be the toughest guy in the world till you see 3 children with their throats slit. Hey, man,
Yeah, there's no make wrong in that. I think it's an interesting, like, the military, you're right. You have no choice. You got to. So it is, and then when they get to your unit, they can still just not hack it, but they can't go. I mean, they're not letting you go. You're there for 4 years, 3 years, whatever your enlistment is, unless you fuck up too bad for let you go. But I mean, maybe that is a good thing in policing where you can say, hey, it's just not,
it's not
it's just it's too much. I mean, I can see it. I mean,
Yeah, but to your point, as a police academy, I knew it was a game.
Yeah,
because we already served in the military. Like we understood now, so I never took anything personal. You could yell all day long, "You're paying me," and I'm leaving at 5 o'clock, so no big deal.
So I mean, you've been in the police force now. So what's the academies like now? Are the rates a little bit higher that people are staying? Have they changed kind of how they're selecting people? Is it still, you know, are they losing more people? Because I feel like maybe the process has gotten a little bit more refined. That they're making sure they're, you know, the psychological parts of it and things like that are getting checked off before guys are just, you know, we need people, you know what I mean?
So right now it's when I came on after 9/11, the line was around the building, right? You got thousands want to join a police department, a fire department. They're only taking so many. It was really hard to get on departments. It's almost like you hit the lotto when you got on. Now, post 2020, post Ferguson effect, we villainized police in 2020. We're just not getting as many signing up as we used to.
Yeah.
And anybody that does sign up right now, my hat's off to them. You know, I signed up on a time everybody wanted to be a cop. Now, you know, I'll give these younger guys and girls some grace. They're signing up a time that not many people want to be one. So they're special place in my heart for them.
Yeah, because I feel like I grew up in New York, so my whole plan was I want to be a state trooper. That was the whole thing. So New York State trooper, and then so I did a police internship my senior year, and then, you know, was getting commissioned, and then, you know, you used to take the New York State police exam, and you could take 2-3 years, like 4 years, because it was a long list, right? So I took the exam. I'll never forget it. And then I'm like senior year, you know, I'm a couple months away from graduating commission, and my dad's like, "Hey, you got a letter from the New York State Police?" I'm like, "What's that?" And they're like, "They want you to report to the academy that summer." And I was like, "Oh shit." And I remember, like, at the time, you know, Russ Larry, who was the chief of police I was working with, he was like, "You're not going in the army, right?" And I was like, "No, I am." And he's like, "Don't do it. That's stupid." Saying, you know, but it's like you said before, like your time, it's like there was a long time because I was allowed to defer it for like 3 years, and then they changed the whole testing thing, and it kind of fell apart. And then when I got out, I was like, "I'm gonna go into policing," and then talk to a police officer, and they're like, "No, don't do it. You know, you've already done your time." But it used to be a lot different. Yeah, you're right about how long it took to get into.
Oh yeah. Now everything's fast track.
Service agencies,
and guys don't want to wait. I mean, like you said, 3 years was normal. Guys in my police academy class, it took me a year to get through the process. There was guys, Columbus, 2 or 3 years. But now it's kind of like your way, right away. Everything is like, hey, we're going to do advanced hiring, advanced testing, combined it all in one day. And it's just, and again, I don't want to be a generational thing because we were the ones that people were saying, oh, these kids nowadays, but there's definitely a little bit higher in expectations of just jobs.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, different time, different things. Yeah, no point in, you know, making people wrong because everything changes. You know, we can always say we know it was harder. I love as you get older, you always tell the stories. You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, never was harder. My kids have it so easy. No,
they got today, and they have different challenges that we don't have.
Oh God,
you know, some of these challenges with the social media. I mean, you know, my kids, you never turn it off. If you and I had an issue at school Friday, the bell rang. It wasn't your problem until Monday. You know, now it's just this 24/7 cycle, and I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, and it's funny. You know, they're still all 3 live with me. It's getting close to we're having some change finally in the Miller house. But my youngest is at OSU, and he's a civil engineer. And like I see him studying all the time. I'm like, I give him such shit about it. I'm like, I was doing, but I'm like, I never studied that much.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't imagine. Like, I see him, like, he's up there right now. Like, he just woke up from nap. Like, what do you do? He's like, we think I'm doing a study. I'm like, wow, this is not, you know. So I don't know. I don't feel like when I watched them study that we were doing as much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, maybe I should have been studying that much. I don't know, but no. But it is different. There's all kind of different. The social media thing's a huge one. Being connected all the time.
Yeah. Just like things change.
I'm thinking about bricking. Have you seen that little brick thing?
No.
So
Tell me.
It's like a device you can put it anywhere, but just walk up and you can set your apps and you hit it, like tap it, and you can't use Facebook, you can't use all these apps, like production things. And it's not like some of the other ones, like, and all the tech people will be like, hey, yeah, you can go around, but this one you can't go around it. Like, you can actually sign up where, like, if you reload the software, you lose the $50, the brick won't work again. So, because I find myself, that's one thing I still struggle with sometimes. I get on there with all good intentions to, like, get on the phone, and then before you know it, you're looking at, funny memes, and then you're sending them to,
and then you're looking at
your kids, and you're like, holy Christ, it's 11 o'clock. No,
you're reading about the dodo bird and why it went extinct, and you just go down some wormhole.
The one I'm more at least is I just love I love the the videos of people getting hurt, like not seriously hurt, but
just a little broken leg.
Yeah,
I don't want to die.
I don't know what the exact diagnosis of what happened to him, but like, you know what I mean? A little bit, people slipping on their stairs,
Yeah.
I don't want to know that they're severely concussed or they broke their leg. It's just funny to me. I don't know. You know what I mean? It's my thing. You know what I mean?
Oh, I go down the wormholes too with these videos.
I have it too that I like, if I've done all my stuff, I'll say, hey, I'm going to put the timer, but I've been looking at that brick thing. It's pretty cool where you can just like, kind of wish I had it with my kids growing up where you just say, hey, just like brick it so nobody can do that.
Yeah. You got to try to self-discipline. It's tough. I'm an undiagnosed ADHD kid. So it's like you be middle working and then you're like, oh, let's just go see what's going on over here. And
for the longest time for me on that, it's like, you just want to know what the fuck's going on. And then like a lot of it is like, you think you're that important that someone has to get a hold of you. Like you have a little bit different job right now, but like, my phone's on airplane mode. Like when I get done, there's not like 27. The world is going to be fine without me.
Sure.
But for a long time, you're like, I'm so important. And then, then you're just like getting on shit and that you don't need to be looking at. But I got rid of all games.
Yeah. I don't do anything.
Like all that kind of shit. Like I'm just on like.
Yeah, I don't do them either.
I can't lie. I do like the people getting hurt memes or the videos, whatever they call them.
Now I feel terrible that because I turned my phone off for the people watching and listening. Like, oh my God. I had to give a emergency number in case someone's looking for me.
He thinks he's so important. No, that's terrible.
Well, like I said, I told my wife to turn my phone off. She's like, oh, yeah, okay, buddy. Where are you at a strip club? So.
Sure you will. Well, I mean, one of the funny things I always talk about Saber Warrior, I don't hide about, but like Saber Warrior, they take all your shit. Like they take your phone, your watch. Right. And so that's the one thing, like, when you go in that, your mind's a little bit different. Like you fucking think you're important, like what's going to happen. And like, I had like 12 messages. It was like, is everybody missing me? They're like, no, I didn't. You're like, wow, okay. This is like I'm going to be okay.
You Saber Warrior. You like it? You good?
I love it. Have you?
Now we should probably talk a little bit that too. I think from the guys I know, great work. I just got a little jaded, not with just Save a Warrior. So some police officers I know who were some of the most atrocious police officers and the last guys I would ever want to back me up. I would hear them say, oh my God, I got to go to Warrior Heart. I got to go to Save a Warrior. And I'm thinking, for what? Like you're messed up. If you're messed up, I should have jumped off a bridge 10 years ago.
Well, it's not being messed up. So like, are we going to talk about that?
Well, I want to unpack it.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, for me, it's changed my life. So, and the aspect of like, I have it, the question I always tell people is like, so if you look at, my life from the outside, everything's, seems pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It always has, right? I've had my ups and downs like everybody else, but inside I was never happy, right? So, there's all kinds of behaviors I was doing that, a lot
because
of
my military trauma or childhood trauma.
I think you would, we could talk more about it, but I think you would qualify based on growing up and like. So there's two parts of it. The big thing about, there's other organizations, but the distinction between Save a Warrior and a lot of the other ones is they're talking about complex PTS. So complex PTS is your formative trauma, right, from the time we're born till, we're the first 18 years of life, so up to the day you turn 19. So just talking to you for an hour. Oh yeah, you've had some formative trauma, like what I mean.
Sure,
so dysfunctional, like a dysfunctional home, alcoholic home. So there's the behaviors that we get some survival traits that we take on as we're early, and we just continue to carry those on. And then what has happened? We go become police officers, firemen, military people, and then we start seeing what you talked about.
Yeah. It's probably what led us to those careers too.
Well, there's a big part of it too. There's a whole thing you tie into, but you start seeing moral injury, like you said, going and seeing three kids that were killed by their parent, right? Like the thing about it is what you have to start to understand is like the thing I always ask people are some things in your life not working? Is there something in your life not work? That's a question only you can ask. And that's what it kind of drove me to that. I mean, it's for a long time, I wanted to deny that I suffered from PTS. It was a sign of weakness. It was a sign of me being broken. But what all that was doing was hiding that was just making me miserable about myself, me doing stupid shit. Right. Yeah. And then just me wanting not to be alive, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And just walking around numb all the time and not giving a fuck. So that's kind of how, Saber Warriors, it kind of breaks open. So, it's not a, I mean, everybody I know, and for me, I can't talk about everybody else, but it's important to me. I still am involved in it very heavy.
Yeah. No, you guys do great work, no doubt.
It just changes. It makes you look at, like those things you talk about. It's like, that moral injury that you saw, like there's something that you handled it for a certain way, and how you process, and people say, I can take it, put it in a box and all this other kind of stuff. But, you still hold that, right? You still have a problem with that, but like, it's just getting in touch with, like I said before, is like, I can't tell you, that's only you, but like anybody that's listening, if something in your life isn't working and only you know that, right? You can be honest with that. That's what it's about, man. And then once you go through it, for me, it was like, you got to change everything about your life. Man, I had to do a lot of soul searching about my whole life. Like you talked about a big thing about, look at what happened to me growing up. Look at where I came. I used to say a lot of time, like first person first person in my family to go to college. My parents were dirt poor. Look, this first person to get a master's degree, like all this stuff. But then when I would talk about that, I'd say, hey, look, it's okay for me to do what I'm doing, because look what I came from. So this allows me to have this behavior. Sure. Right. And a lot of it would transcend to my family eventually, where like I would, I don't hide behind it, but I never hit my kids. Right. But I would verbally and mentally abuse my kids. Right? Yeah. So, but I would tell them like, oh, you're lucky that you don't have your grandmother around, because she would hit you. I'm only yelling at you and screaming at you, which is essentially, I'm only physically, I'm only mentally and verbally abusing you. And that doesn't make it right, just because it happened to me. So that's kind of what Save a Warrior kind of does, is trying to understand the survival traits that you're carrying on as an adult. Sure. And, I'm an adult child. I don't want to, a lot of stuff like that. So that's what was a big thing to me, to be able to start being accountable for myself, and not use what happened to me in the past, whether it's childhood or moral injury, to say, hey, that's why I can do that. Like I can get blistering drunk down here and act like an asshole and start picking on people because I was in the military. You don't understand. Yeah. That's fucking bullshit. Right.
It's amazing that though, what you went through, your childhood probably made you so good at what you did in the military.
Oh no. Yeah. This is a great,
right. But here you are 10, 15, 20 years later, and it's like, you're now seeing a different route. And I love talking about it.
Yeah, there's some stuff that's going to, like, I definitely think there's a reason why, like, it's like, so the story is like, it's hysterical. Like my story of joining the military used to be a story, right? It was, my grandfather served in the military. We have heritage of being in the military. My dad was a Vietnam veteran. I grew up in the military. I just grew up being patriotic. I always wanted to serve my country. I just thought, I saw such value in that. I saw what you could, you can go from nothing to achieve something. And that's why I joined the military, right? I was wired differently, right? I'm a patriot. The real reason is I was trying to escape my undiagnosed manic depressive mother and get out as fast as I can. And I joined the Army and became an officer to look better than my dad, to show my dad, look, I'm better than you. People don't want to be honest about that. That's like a lot of the times of the story. Like you said it. You said, hey, I was fucking up in school, right? I was fighting with my family, and I was out in a failed relationship. That's why. Like, there's no. That's an honest to God story of why you do it. But people come up with all kinds of stuff. Like, I saw this, and I'm not making them wrong, but like, oh, the towers collapsed, and then I had to do this and that. But like, what's the real reason you joined? But so there's definitely the warrior class. That the military does. Does appeal to people that have, moral injury, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm not moral injury, I'm sorry, but formative trauma. So, for me, like you said before, I grew up in that, that lifestyle felt awesome. Like when I finally got my voice was when I was in the military, right? I was, I couldn't, just like your household, if you lipped off to my mom, you were getting popped, if my mom couldn't do it enough. When my dad came home, he would take care of the stuff. I lived in a very strict home. But when I finally got my voice and I was able to start fucking, having power over people, I just turned it on to them. I mean, I wanted to make people feel how I felt. Sure. Right. Like when I became in power, there's a part of me that was like, I love dominating people. This part of me still does. Yeah. Like I fucking love that, man. I love, like, if I can get you to do something you don't want to do. I used to love that shit. Sure. I used to love, but that's what's happening. And the whole thing of it was like, I would say I want to be a leader and I want to do this, all the kind of stuff. But like, honestly, like I wanted to hurt people. I was hurt. Yeah. And hurt people, right? And that's what I was doing. I mean, I was like, I had a lot of years that I was just like, I'm going to make people feel like I felt. Like I did that to my boys. Like, everything's fine. Everything's great. This isn't a big deal, but I want to make you feel like, you shouldn't be comfortable in this situation. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what, that's kind of my journey, or part of it, of why, Save a War has been key to me, because now I got to understand, like, hey, I got to understand why I did that. Right. It was me. You know what I mean? Like how many friendships I pushed away and treated people like that and tried to dominate them. And where'd that get me,
And that's probably my own insecurity too with Save a War. I feel like I don't want to take a spot. There's so many more cops too that could take that spot over me, right? Because then PTS is real, and I think it is just as real in the police, and I see it all the time. And it might be a little bit different, but it's the same thing. You're exposed to trauma, and a long-term trauma. The hardest part about being police is dealing with that trauma, and now you're going to a recital afterwards, or you're dealing with that issue, and now I'm leaving and I'm going to go home, and it's my night to cook dinner for the wife, and this is just stuff that the kids or that police deal with over that long period of time. But again, I think people deal with stuff different ways. Sometimes in the bottle, sometimes saw some religion. The older I get, the more I'm being called back to the church. I grew up Catholic.
Yeah, I mean, that's another. Yeah, it's
coming
another.
Back.
Yeah, it's another thing too. There's a lot of stuff that Save a War is in its own, like. I don't think anything's the program is proprietary. I'd say that how the game is played, right? But all the stuff is from philosophical stuff, higher power. The 12-step program, there's all the stuff that just brings it together, but it's just brought together where it's thrown in your face and be like, holy fuck, this is the life I live. Like. But yeah, so it's not, and you did say, like, I'm not willing. So there's a lot of people who have imposter syndrome, right? Like a lot of it comes down to, like, okay, imposter syndrome. I felt the same way. Like, you look at, like, this person's doing worse, but the whole idea is, like, to save just one, right? And the one person is me.
Sure.
It's not you. It's not anybody else. It's to save me, right? But I'm deserving of it, right? It doesn't matter what my trauma was. Like, I'm not taking scores, but I deserve to live a happy life, right? I deserve to be reconnected with my inner child. I mean, everybody does. So it just takes, filling it out and submitting it and have a conversation. You may be lucky to talk to a former CPD. Larry might call you and talk about it. But yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, I mean, there's a dude that, like, you look at Larry and you're like, every time I see him, I'm like, that's an authentic motherfucker, man. I mean, and that's what it's about. Like a lot of the stuff, it's a great organization. And CPD is huge. And I mean, I don't have to talk about it. I don't even know the percentage of it. It's high. It's right around our corner. I think your guys' union push. I don't know how that works. A lot of it goes, but it's a great thing. And I know what it is, but it's all those things. I mean, there's all, I wouldn't categorize, you've seen officers that have been through or not through it. I know it's kind of those things, but it's like I said before, there's something in your life, if you or someone else, I'll talk about it with you more. I'll talk about it all night if I could, but if something's not working, you only know that, right? Like, and something wasn't working in my life. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why, no matter how good things were going, I always felt fucking miserable. I felt like my big thing was, I've just come to, talk about lately, is like, I would be in a room or having an event with everybody around, and I was the only fucking person that had a problem with something. Like, every fucking time. Like every single fucking thing I did, I had a problem with it. Like when you start thinking about it, like Josh is over there before he's seen it. Like, I was like, I had to fucking have a problem with everything. And I'm like, how are we not bitching about that dude over there or this or that? And that was my whole life. And I was like, man, like, no wonder people don't want to fucking be around me. Right. Yeah. No wonder my family doesn't want to be around me. Right. And that wasn't working for me. That wasn't, being able to be present and be like that used to drive me crazy. Like, how the fuck can we sit around here, right, with the dog yipping, nobody, like, dishes out of whack, all this noise, and everybody's having a good time, and I'm looking around, I'm like, I want that, and that's what I have now. I'm able to be present. I'm able to, like, dude. And it's just, it works for me, man. So
yeah, well, good. I'm glad you find it. Keep it out. And
we got deep in hour 2, didn't we?
Man, I was gonna say, man, I'm actually pissed at something that's over there, and I don't like it over there. So, all right.
So you said religion. I didn't mean to cut you off, but, like, so religion's big on you now.
Yeah, just something I got kind of called back to. I went to confession last week, sat down, raised Catholic, went to Catholic school, Catholic high school, kind of just pulled away, and now kind of getting back in. I got little kids, got them all baptized, put them through PSR. We went to maybe CCD as a kid. Wife's a Lutheran. She kind of was like, hey, go ahead. You want to send the kids? You're going to do it. So I brought my kids to reconciliation last week, and the 8 and 10-year-old, and I'm standing in line. My son is a little nervous, and I'm like, all right, no one's going to stop me. I'm going to go. So I sit down, forgive me, Father, for I've sinned. It's been 28 years since my last confession. And the father's like, wow, welcome home. And he goes, maybe just hit the highlights. So I'm like,
everybody else in line, we're going to need you to come back tomorrow. No.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, listen, Father, I'll just be real. I said, I'm pretty sure I violated every single one except murder. And then I leaned forward and I go, I'm not entirely sure I could say that though. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, go on. I said, well, over my policing career, I stood over so many bodies of people that were dying. And because I judged them as a piece of shit, and probably a good reason, you're there shot and made no effort to help them. I'm like, I don't know, maybe that's murder. And he was like, I understand, act of contrition, 2 Hail Marys. But I say that kind of in jest, but we have a different philosophy in CPD now. Now we render aid. When I came in, we didn't render aid. You showed up, you literally stood over the guy. We're not medics. You're like, hey, buddy, so ambulance coming. Now with these younger officers, which I think they're pretty amazing, and we changed our culture, we have tourniquets, we have chest seals. Like, these kids are pumping chests, like actually saving guys' lives, not judging them just because they're a piece of shit drug dealer, which, again, my culture, and I came on, sorry, dude, don't sell drugs.
Was there a party that wanted to help, though? I mean,
I'm sorry?
Was there a party that wanted to help them, or was it the culture was just like...
No, well, I think it was just a culture. We just didn't do that. We weren't trained to do that.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were trained if your partner got shot, buddy aid, right? Something like that. But we weren't trained to render aid on, on someone like that. But like I said, and I just look back, I'm like, well, shit, man, maybe if I had a tourniquet back then, maybe if they gave us chest seals, maybe we could have did something. So like I said, I don't think I murdered him. I was just trying to make it was a very awkward after 28 years sitting in front of a priest. But I love about the Catholic religion, act of contritions, few Hail Marys. I walked out feeling good.
So I'm not Catholic, my wife is, but we had to, we got married in a Catholic church. We had to raise the kids Catholic. So how are the kids taken to all the stuff?
They're good. One of the reasons was, as I just got older, I just wanted to, a little more of a moral compass, just teach them some of the things I had that maybe have the priest do some parenting I didn't do. Like, I should have raised them more to have some kind of foundation. And I say, I'm not pushing like Catholicism. That's just something I was comfortable with. So that was something for me. It'd be easy to kind of go back to.
I only laugh because I don't think I'm talking about, but I think Josh knows the story. But my youngest son, all of them played sports, but my youngest son got recruited to go to Franciscan University, right? So, during that whole thing, it was like taking turns of who's going and all this kind of stuff. And so, I drew the straw for Franciscan University. So I kind of looking, and I'm like, what's this, some hardcore Catholicism thing going on? So, so I draw the straw. We head out that way. And at the time I was having this freaking my back was killing me. Something's going on. And so we had to leave, crazy in the morning, and we're like 40 minutes away. And my youngest son breaks out like, oh, we have to do Catholic mass at this thing. And I'm like, what?
Oh yeah. You're kneeling.
And so I'm like, what? And so now I'm like, are you kidding me? So we go into McDonald's, and like, I come out, and he tells the story way better about how mad I was. I was like, my fucking back hurts. I got to do, like, I'm like, your mom do this. I got set up. So like, I'm like, we're just going to go into this, man. We're going to just lean into it. We'll get through this. Right. It's like one day. How bad can it be? Dude, we pull into the parking lot, and the nicest people come. There's like 10 kids. They're like, oh my gosh, like, get on the van or whatever. It's like, we get in there. We get in the van, they take you there, like, open the doors, like, all these people, like, we get inside, man, we get hit like right away. Like, this room, people, they're just 4 or 5 people surround us, start asking us questions about faith, all this kind of stuff. And this is not a lie at all. I fucking panicked for a second, but I'm like, hey, hold on a second. Like, I think I have a phone call from work. I got to take this phone call. So I just like walk out. So I go out there, and they've surrounded Gabe, and like, I'm looking at my phone, and now I'm like, you know what? I'm fucking going back in there, and I'm going to, like, you caught me off guard. I'm going back in there, and I'm like, I'm taking over this whole thing. So I go back in there. So then I just start asking them questions. Like, I'm just like on the offensive, And so then, like, we pray the first time. Then, like, I mean, we're there like an hour. I swear to God, we prayed like 3 times. And then the kids like separate off. They have to go, do their thing. And then they take us to financial aid. Yeah. And they're talking about, there's like 6, 7 families, whatever. And they're all going around like, why does your kid want to go to Franciscan University? And like, I'm not joking. One of the stories is like, oh my gosh, when I was in Canada, the Franciscan monks came there. I always knew that I wanted to, get my kids there. So my daughter's going there. We brought our other 2 kids here just so they can see this. And it's just like, it's a dream come true, this trip. And everyone's having these deep things. And I'm the last person. And they're like, well, why, what brings you here? And I was like, well, my son's being recruited to play baseball. And they were like, it was like, and so it was literally the most awkward 3 hours of my entire life. And the funny part about the story is like, we go back down and this guy is like asking us about where we go to church. And I feel bad about this because I fucking lied, but I don't, because so the guy's like, where do you go to church in Columbus? And I was like, well, it's kind of hard. We're Columbus is so big. We're just trying to figure out where where the right church is for us. And we just haven't found the right church for us, for our family. And when we walked away, my son was like, that dude was totally checking us to see what we were doing. But like when we left, we get in the car. I mean, my son was like, Dad, if this would have been Mom, we wouldn't have made it. but I'm like, I was like, I remember being in that car and be like, do you want to do this? And my son's like, no. No. Right, I mean, it was like, no, this is not for me. It was like,
it was probably a strict school. I went to Ohio Dominican. They made you take theology classes. I always liked theology classes, but they didn't really like push it very hard.
Yeah, it was experience I've never seen in my entire life. I mean, I'm glad. I mean, the only fact is like it's a bonding moment my son and I will always have, because I was like, number one, I didn't swear the whole time, which was crazy. He can validate, but as soon as we get in the car, I'm like, we can get the fuck out. Like, I mean, it was like nothing against Franciscan University or that faith or anything like that, but it was not for.
So what are you, Protestant or Lutheran?
I was Lutheran.
Okay.
I never not practice, but then like you said, for the kids, kind of worked them through that. So
I married a Lutheran. It's Catholic light, and my father-in-law is a retired Lutheran minister. Yeah. So that guy curses and says JC. God damn it, more times than I can remember. My wife's a PK, a pastor kid. And I'd always tell her, and she'll watch us later and get pissed, because I always say at parties, I said, very religious girl. First night I met her, she yelled, "Oh God, oh God, oh God," all night long. Boom, boom, boom. That was for you, Lindsay.
No, I mean, it was we had the kids going through all the stuff here, and then we moved to Ohio, and that's one of the things my wife still struggles with. But I have it now that my boys are old enough that they want to continue on with their their journey of Catholicism. That's all I mean. But it was interesting because I was doing it I was just doing it to. I mean, we have two different. So the Catholicism is funny because I'd be like, I'm the dad who was like, get off, get your butt off the pew. Like I look like I was like the traditional Catholic dad. And I'd be like, I'm not even Catholic. I just, I don't know. It was just, there's it has a lot of rules. It's kind of fun. You can kind of fall into it, but it was cool to see that, taking the kids to the first time they took confession and things like that. It was pretty neat. So, but that was interesting there because we, at that Franciscan University, they were going up to get communion. And I was like, that's when I started remembering the things that I did. And I was like, man, you can't take it. Yeah. Right. He was like, what do you mean? I'm like, I feel like you haven't, there's something I know you're supposed to have done that you can't take. I was like, I think you haven't done confession or something in a while, so you can't take it. And he's just like, and I'm like, most importantly, I cannot be the only person that doesn't go take communion. And we were the only two people that didn't go take it. I mean, people come back like, I'm like, we have that bond forever. I'm like, but they did say he did not go to Franciscan University.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. You at least got to take him there. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, those are things we missed, like the whole thing of but that's a whole different world too, right? Like going on visits to colleges, all this kind of stuff. Like again, it was like a brochure. Like my kids asked one time about how I found out Norwich. I literally read a brochure. I didn't go to the school. Like nobody, my dad wasn't driving me.
And is that where you went, Norwich?
Yeah. Okay. Nobody drove me up to, it wasn't like you were going on a weekend trip. Like it was like.
Yeah, well, I didn't do college visits with my son. My son was going to Citadel. My son wanted to go to one school, the Citadel, applied to the Citadel, got into Citadel, and that's where he was going. Yeah. Just 2 weeks before school started, I came home and he said, "Hey, Dad, I got to talk to you." And I said, "Hey, what's up?" And he goes, "I don't want to go to college." And I was like, "All right, man. So we're leaving in 2 weeks. You realize this? Like, we have the plane tickets booked." And he said, "I want to enlist instead." And said, "It's your journey, brother." So
he's a Marine now?
Yeah, he's a Marine now.
He's
in the School of Infantry right now. He finishes in 2 weeks, and he goes to 1-5 out in Pendleton. He's infantry, and they're deploying in August to Australia. And I said, "But you're going to be fine. You're doing pretty good."
So you give him a hard time about being a West Coast Marine, or
no, he's in a School of Infantry right now in Camp Geiger in Lejeune. He went to Paris Island. And he said he's heading out. It's just that's where he's going to 1-5. I'm glad. I told him, I said, "Hey, go out there, California, man. You can't beat that." Okay. And much nicer to visit than Lejeune. But again, I never pushed the Marine Corps to him. I didn't realize how much just the things I did rubbed off to him. It's just kind of funny. Before he left, we were kind of butting heads a little bit. He had the ritual of trying to chest bump his old man, like I did to my old man. You probably did to yours, and saw how quick that doesn't work. Yeah. And we were kind of a little strange for a couple months, and just seeing him once he graduated, that, hey, Dad, I didn't realize everything you told me. Like, I appreciate it. You helped me get through this, and get you teary eyed a little bit, Yeah,
because they're in that fuck you phase. Like, you don't know anything. You can't do anything right. You're like, yeah. I remember that phase.
I was hard. I have 2 boys and 3 girls, and I'm definitely different to the boys or the girls. There's no doubt. And probably everything I unloaded on Jack, my oldest, probably was not good. It was probably that mental trauma that my old man loaded on me. So part of me, you think like, well, man, it toughened him up and he's doing good in the Marines. And the other part, you're like, yeah, maybe if I wasn't such. He used to call me. He goes, Dad, you're an a-hole sometimes, but you're a Division I a-hole. He's like, you're good at it. But so maybe it toughened him up to be the Marines. But maybe if I would have treated him more like the girls, maybe it would have been, hey, Dad, I'm off to med school. But you just you do the best you can with what you got.
So is there any reason why you think you treated the boys and girls different?
Yeah, because that was just that generational kind of, I was kind of raised with a heavy fist. You're a man, you're going to protect the flock, protect the women, don't go out and pick at anybody. But if anybody puts an arm on you, you break their nose. It's just how I grew up, and just how I didn't know any better. I had Jack when I was 27, and this is just, your dad's a cop, your dad's a Marine. It's just what I knew, but the girls are kind of just different. I treat the girls 10 times different. I spoil and baby the shit out of them, but not saying it's right, but again, it's, I used to give my old man died, I was, we didn't talk for about a year before he died, just real crotchety fighting. I remember I took the kids over one day, and the kids were really little, and he's drinking and he says the N-word. And I said, hey, Dad, my kids don't know that word. You can't say that. And he's like, my house, you can get out if you want. And I was like, all right, let's go. Pack the kids up and left. Remember my mom crying, where are you going? I'm like, listen, I was raised listen to that shit. My kids aren't going to learn that. You know what I mean? And then, when he passed, I had a lot of just anger, like, F you, dude. One of the last times I saw him, we were taking care of him. He wasn't doing good. He was his body was falling apart. I remember he had this little bell, and he'd ring it all night long. Hey, I got to go to the bathroom, and start yelling at me. And the next day I had a 6-pack of beer, and a buddy of mine, also Marine and a cop, we're having a beer. And I remember my old man walks by, and he goes, oh, have another beer, kid. And I lost it. And the dude was 85, and I was ready to just whip the shit out of him. And I was just so mad at him. But long story short, I was messed up for a couple of years after he died. I was like, man, I lost time with him. Maybe I wasn't a good son. Maybe I wasn't proud of him. F you for the trauma you put me through. Yeah. But thank you for making me tough. But anyway, I called one of my cousins, who's kind of like, one of the leaders in our family. And he said what I just told you. He goes, yeah, listen, the old man, that's all he had. He gave you everything he had, and give him a little grace. He didn't know. He probably wasn't that way to you because he wanted you to be screwed up or something. But so same with my son. And maybe that's not an excuse. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but my point is, I've done the best I could for Jack. I hope nothing but the best for him. Yeah. I'm so proud that he's in the Marines. I would have been proud no matter what he did. And I definitely, whenever I get a chance, I tell him I love him, and I worry about him.
Yeah. You're talking about some same terminology we use in Saw about, like it takes a long time for you. Some people never get over it. For me, it was like, he's not here. He's usually here all the time. But I was pissed at my dad for a long time, man. I felt like he abandoned me. I felt like he wasn't around, never listened to me. But they look at it, and I'm like, now that I look at it a different way, I'm like, I don't blame him for being a workaholic. I don't blame him for not being around my mom. Sure. I don't blame him for all that shit anymore. Like my mom, up until 2 years ago, I would use my excuses for my mom at 50 years old. If it applied to me and I needed to, I would be like, you don't understand. My mom did this to me. Well, my mom was fucking dead for 13 years at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just at a point, you have to understand that they're doing the best they can. Like your grandfather, your father, my parents at the time were doing the best. My mom and dad were doing the best they could.
Sure.
With the best thinking they had at the time. I can't make them wrong for that, but that's what we end up doing is, as kids, something happens and then we just hold this grudge, and we blame them for all these things. And then what do? We pass it on, the same thing. So I just have that new look now to try to be try to be different. I know I've done a lot of damage, but now I just try to be a different guy.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. It's kind of weird. My son too. I think we have a different. Definitely, once he graduated Marines, it's just a different relationship.
Yeah.
It's almost like, I mean, I don't want to. Maybe I respect him more now, or I just see him through a different lens. So, like, he's my son, but he's also. It's kind of like we shared a certain thing together.
Yeah.
And I just see him different. I see him as an adult now, not as a child. And even though he's a 19-year-old kid, but I just see, and how he talks to me is completely different. Our relationship's never been better.
I mean, that's a tribal thing, man. Like, we're like, I mean, if you go back to it, like, you're not supposed to fucking hang around and be around your dad. Simply, you're supposed to, be irritated and leave and go, fuck your dad and go start your own thing.
Sure.
That's how the gene pool, that's how we stay.
And have a healthy fear.
But they come back. Yeah, they come back. I think there's some things like, mine are a little bit older, but like, I feel that same way. But I mean, I'm super proud of mine. They couldn't be any different than. There's a good thing. I mean, they have. I see how they're similar to me in the same ways. But I mean, I'm blessed to have a wife who sees things completely different, and they have a lot of her qualities, which are all wonderful and great.
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, some of them. I mean, but in general, they have a little bit different outlook on it. You know what I mean? So. It's just, I can't, I used to beat myself up about that too, man. I used to be like, what did I do to my kids? But dude, I was doing the best I could at the time. Yeah, man.
Sure.
My best thinking. And now I just got to change my thinking and do that. And I'm kind of convinced I'm going to have girl granddaughters though. Cause if that's the case, I'm going to be like super soft, be like,
oh yeah.
As long as I'm not into gymnastics or cheerleading, I think I'll be okay.
Yeah, I got kids and everything. They're in all of it. I never push my kids for certain things. I would tell my kids, you're going to do something. Yeah. I don't care if you play the tuba. I don't care if you swim. You're going to be involved in something. And some went cheer, some went soccer, football, lacrosse, but they've all been into something. And every father, you want your kid to go med school, vet school, law school. You always want to go be an astronaut, but bottom line, I just want my kids to grow up just good law-abiding kids and just take care of people. But I'm definitely, I'm family oriented. Family's number one in my life, but then sometimes I have to check myself. If my family and my kids are so important, then why am I putting so many hours in work? Why are you doing this and this? And sometimes I kind of bring forward my wife, Lindsay, absolute love of my life, soulmate. I could not do any of this without Lindsay. I mean, she definitely, she holds the roost. I like to think I'm the tough guy, the union boss, the Marine, the cop. Lindsay's the tough one, and she's a tiny little bodybuilder, so she could out PT me any day, outsmart me, outwit me. So she definitely ties it all together.
So I had a question that tied to that, but I think you answered some of it. If you want to add more to it, but like growing up without the parents growing up in the situation you did, not really knowing your father, how did you did share a little bit, but how's that past shaped you as a dad, you think? I mean, obviously now with 2 older kids, now some younger ones.
Yeah.
How's that changed your?
A little bit of everything. I can't, like I said, my grandpa who raised me never came to any event. So I try to come to as many events as I can. When you have 5 kids, you simply can't come to every event. At the end of the day, I try to be there as most as I can. Also, some days there is work that comes into play some days. So I think my wife would usually say it's not like the quantity of time, it's the quality of time. Just kind of be there when you are there. I struggle with the phone too. Sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm going to go sit down and play with my 4-year-old, and then I'll find myself a work call or a text. And I got to get better just putting that stuff aside, because with my oldest son, Jack, and sometimes, it was hard, me being young, recently divorced, just having him. Jack and Lucy were the 2 kids with my ex-wife. So I raised them by myself until I met Lindsay. Then she came and helped. And then we had another 3 kids. So there's stuff I missed with Jack that I was like, oh, I'll catch the next game. I'm going to go work special duty. I'm going to work overtime. I got bills to pay. I'll catch the next game. And then he's gone. And now he's in the Marines, and you don't get any more games with him. So I think that has helped me kind of with the other ones. Like, you know what? And it's easy to say, hey, I'm going to skip that overtime and I'm going to go to a game. But you still have bills to pay. You still have a house. We were talking about taxes. You work to put your kids in a good school system. That does come with something. So sometimes I think I beat myself up a little too much about that. And that's where my wife comes in again. She'll say, it's just the quality time. When you are here, just be here.
Yeah, because that being present is huge. Yeah, like
Yeah.
man, you can't beat everything. But although some parents can, I don't know how they do it. You know, see that I'm like,
God bless them. I got guys I work with that they will skip these work events, these events we have when we have these fundraisers. They'll skip in 2 seconds because their kid has some JV cheerleading match or somewhere, and it's like okay, and that's kind of tough too. And what I do with the FOP is a lot of give, and sometimes I think, well, man, I just spent all these times with other families, and my family's at home right now. So, but
yeah, I mean, I was big in that too. Like that was one of the things before that was one for me is like I was involved in all kinds of shit that it was basically allowing me to look good. You know what I mean? All these things, helping other people out. Like, and the reason I was doing this to look good. You know what I mean? I carried a portion of it, but like, yeah, I'd be like, I would tell, I'd be like, I got to deal with this and not deal with my own, family. Now I'm a lot, now I make sure that if I'm missing time with my family, it's because I'm doing something. Cause I have it that if you're doing something that is productive, that you're doing something that's meaningful, that, I don't have that as being bad. Some people do, that's their own life, but I don't have it that, like just last weekend, my wife was going down to the Ohio State baseball club game against Cincinnati. Like I love my son. I told him, but I'm not going. I got other stuff to do. It's fine. But I talk about it, but I mean, that's just me. And it's how it works for our family, but
sure.
Yeah. But I would think that, I mean, I think it's exactly what you have. You have younger kids, right? It's like when you become a grandparent, you start to see why grandparents are different, right?
Yeah, and they could show up to all those things. And then when people say, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm going to be a full-time grandparent.
Yeah.
And I'm the stuff I missed with Jack, I want to make sure I don't miss with the grandkids.
Yeah, because it becomes important then. I mean, that's when you really look at it. Like you look at what they're, what's going on. It's a whole different mindset. It's a whole different look. So yeah, it's interesting. So,
and also at our age too, I'm not telling you we're old, but we have definitely more years behind us than we have in front of us. And I'm starting to kind of see, mortality a little bit more than I did, and sometimes for the good things. If I'm working through a problem, I keep thinking, well, in 5 years ain't gonna matter. In 50 years, I'm gonna be dust. So I'm not going to stress too much over this issue right now. So there is some good effect.
It is when you start thinking about that, it is like, holy crap. Like, like legitimately have like 23 years left.
Yeah.
And you kind of think about like, holy cow, that went 23 years went by really quick. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Just to be productive and
or how many healthy years? I was talking to my kids about being rich and not just go like deep philosophical, but they said, are we rich? I said, we're very rich. We got a loving family. We're all healthy. I'm like, we're as rich as they can come. You know what I mean? But when I say about healthy years, I'll start doing the math. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be 47. What am I like at 60? What am I like at 70? My old man sat in a chair at 65 and never got up. And he sat there for 20 years, just drank beer and watched TV. And I said, that ain't going to be me. I'm going to be 75 chasing grandkids around. And then fitness is always important to me. My wife and I, we work out. My daughter works out with us. And you just got to keep on reading, keep on PTing, and, just watch your booze.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. We totally went off track from being a police officer, huh?
Yeah, well, I ramble. So I mean,
no,
listen,
I'm glad. Yeah. No, this is exactly what I thought would happen, but it's fun. So let's talk about policing here a little bit. I mean, you have a 20-year career so far with CPD or 19 or so?
I hit 19 CPD. Jacob Day was in my class. You had him on here. I had to box him. Could you imagine? You see the size of that dude's melon and landing haymakers on that thing. Yeah, Mongo there would just stare at you as you're just bagging them with left and rights. But Jacob Day was out of my class, 19 years CPD, then, 4 in New Jersey. We're 25 years here and we could retire. So I bought back my military time so I could retire next year if I want to. We'll see how it goes.
You leaning towards that, or what's your percentage?
Yeah,
your wife is listening. Remember?
So we have this deferred retirement option program, and it's pretty good. Listen, if somebody comes along private and offers me a job at the right price, like I'll go. It just depends, and I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing with the FOP. There's definitely a shelf life. It's a different kind of stress than policing, but. Most of my time policing was patrol, mostly third shift patrol, which I absolutely loved. And I worked with some of the best guys out there. I worked great precincts, inner city precincts, challenged neighborhoods of color. And I loved every day that I worked those precincts. And best part of being a cop is you got a ticket to the greatest show on earth. And you see how the sausages are made.
So, like, you've seen in your time, you've seen the thought process of what people think of the police department. You've seen, the police departments change themselves.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think's the most, significant, or the best thing that you've seen change as far as policing goes? You talked a little bit about, now rendering aid, but what do you see from, like, you coming on as a cop at, 25 years ago to how police departments are now? What is if you're talking to somebody, like, how it's changed, culture, whatever your thoughts are?
It's becoming less and less of a blue collar job, right? And more transition to a white collar job. It used to be a very low paid blue collar job. Majority of police officers would have historically low education. Now we're seeing some of the most educated guys there are. We have Columbus police officers that have PhDs, law degrees, master's degrees. We have more and more coming in with bachelor's degrees. And I'm not saying you have to have a degree to be a good cop, or if you don't have a degree, you're not a good cop. But it's just changing. And we get a good salary. So and nobody takes this job for the money. But at the end of the day, we have car notes. We have kids we're putting through school. So, and that's one of the things the FOP does is we fight for good pay, good benefits, and we're kind of seeing the fruits of that. And it's not anything I did. It's the forefathers, the guys before me in the FOP really paved the way to make this profession just more professional.
So you talked about, the culture change of people, like the culture of their view of, not getting political or anything, but like, what do you think is the big change from, the police officer being the good guy, the bad apple, to, like, how I have it now is, like, every cop's a bad guy, right? Or gal. Like, what do you think? What do you attribute that change to?
The good part about policing right now is they're trying to paint us as more kind of community policing. They're trying to get away from the warrior culture, and we're not supposed to call ourselves warrior culture. We're supposed to call it guardians. You can call us whatever we want. Policing is a warrior culture, and warrior culture doesn't mean we're going in there and raping and pillaging towns, right? The guardian is just this nicer name. There is a time in policing where you're going to tie a kid's shoe. You're going to help a lady cross the street. You're going to do all those fun things, dance on TikTok. That's a new thing. All these cops lip sync and doing dance. That's great. But this job is not all that. There are times you are going to have to discharge your weapon. There are times you're going to have to pummel somebody with a Maglite who's trying to kill you. And we can't forget that. I just want the officers coming in to know this job, although not every day is the Alamo, it's not a job of just rainbows in sunshine. You experience bad stuff. You do bad stuff, right? It's just what policing is.
Yeah. And how do you convey that to the community? Like, because when you say that, I completely understand it. I mean, that, being in the war culture or something like that, but how do you, because I think that's what, for me, the changes has, where you see, now, like, one cop does something bad, one nurse or one person does something, and that whole profession goes on attack. But I think with policing, it's gotten to a point, and some of it is justifiable. There's some pretty shitty things that have been done, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like there's that shift of, like, when you say that to people, they don't get it. They have this perception of what the police should be, and to be honest with you, at my age, I'm confused by that. I'm like, what like, how do you, like, to me, never being in it, but I understand it. Like, I can say, like, holy shit, like, we can be, this is Columbus, we're just down the road is Columbus area, like, these guys and gals are driving by themselves, right? They can go on a call where the fucking worst thing that the worst thing that you can't even imagine happen. Yeah. And then, you're supposed to just act normal. You're back, you're back to work. Like, you're, and just that emotional high and low, and going from, like you said before, seeing, helping someone and then doing something that nobody wants to do. You just have to do it. Somebody has to do it. Right?
Sure. Doesn't matter where you work. So there's so much to unpack here, but I use half the cops in this country that are killed are not in the Columbuses, the Clevelands, the Birminghams. They're suburban areas. Westerville, 2008, Westerville is a very good community, low crime community. We had 2 officers shot and killed, and that's where I think it hit home from a lot of guys. And they're like, well, how could this happen in Westerville? Well, this is the world. Like, this can happen anywhere, right? Yeah. It might be, just exacerbated more in inner city because of the amount of crime. The reality is the chance of being shot, we'll just say, by a Columbus police officer, 0.0028%. It is very, very small. I was involved in a police officer shooting in 2008. I would say out of 2,000 cops, maybe 50 have used their weapon in their career, maybe 100. it's still a small percentage. It's definitely not something that happens all the time, but when it does, it's so amplified.
Yeah.
You get on your news right now, an officer in Spokane, Washington shot somebody. Why do I care about what happened in Spokane, Washington? Well, because now with the internet, and it just gets people fired up, right?
Yeah.
It's like the media makes money off of this. It's changed that now we have body-worn cameras, which was one of the best and worst things to happen to this profession. When I came on, we didn't have body-worn cameras. Cameras are great now. They protect the officer. About 80% of our officers are totally vindicated in any kind of misconduct allegation because of a camera. It helps in convictions. If you get stopped for a DUI, anything, it's helping. Where and the camera was supposed to bridge the gap and build trust in communities. Where it's hurt our profession, and I'll give you a scenario, and I often talk about this scenario when I talk to activists or elected officials. When I came on, no camera, I'd pull over a lady, let's say inner city, challenge neighborhood. She's got no license. She's got a small warrant, say jaywalking, 2 kids in a car, no insurance, no seatbelts. 9 out of 10 times, the officers would have said, look, you clearly don't have a pot to piss in. We're not going to make your situation worse. We're going to follow you home, park your car, and just get your stuff in order. Now with the camera, it's different. You're going to jail on your warrant. I'm towing your car. Your kids are going to children's services. Let's say this is a woman of color. Did I just help bridge a gap between the police and the inner city community of color, or did I kind of strain that?
Yeah.
And that's something when you tell like the politicians, they're like, well, we never thought of that. Well, no, you had a knee-jerk reaction over a video you saw in a city nowhere near here, and now it was, no, we need these cameras. We got to move now.
Yeah.
But it's also helped. If you ever hear me talk, I represent cops. I advocate cops. I fight vehemently for cops, not bad cops. There's a mistake of the heart, mistake of the mind. One of our cops makes a mistake, drives too fast, gets in an accident, maybe hits the guy twice. He only should have punched him once. We'll work with you. You steal money, you bang some other cop's wife. I'll be the first one to tell you, hey, bud, take a beat to beat it. You don't belong in this organization. Yeah. But luckily, that's small. That's few and far between.
So what made you think to take that role?
2009 was a rough time in my life. And I'm going to tell you the story, not to justify anything. I was completely wrong. I did a bad thing to a bad person. In 2009, my grandma who raised me was dying. I'd keep going back to New Jersey. I was early 2009. I would keep going back to New Jersey. My grandma was dying. My ex-wife, very separated, strange relationship. Long story short, rough year, a lot of stuff going on. Got divorced, didn't have the kids, came home to an empty house one day, took everything, and I would go to work. And then I worked an area where, you'd have guys running from you. You'd have guys fighting from you. And it was like, hey, no matter how stressed I am, I know some criminal is going to fight with me and I'm going to be able to knock his block off. And it's almost like that's how I was able to get stuff out. And you justify it. Hey, he's a bad guy. He's a bad guy to pull the gun on me, so I can go ahead and club him. Long story short, one day, this guy named Charles Shotwell was a ex-con. Not a good person. He crashed a car drunk into a building, fought the medics, fought the police. I show up working late night in South Linden. A new officer gets stuck with him. It's an OVI. So they're like, hey, new kid, you got to deal with him. Trying to be nice. I said, hey, I'm going to help you out. The guy had high blood pressure. So this is how crazy it was. At the time, the jail was not taking somebody that you arrested if they had high blood pressure, which makes no sense. So what do? You got to take them home. So this guy who's already fought with 3 cops, we're now driving home. As we drive him home, my partner at the time was walking him up to the house. I was sitting in the car. My partner and him, I watch them. They start fighting because the officer hands them the ticket, crumbles it up. Charles throws it in the officer's face. Now they start fighting. So we handcuff the guy. We walk him back to the car. I tell my partner, hey, I'm going to take care of this. I'll put him in the car. At the time, it's called a C-clamp, right? You put your thumb back, your mandibular angle, infraorbital under your nose. You squeeze it. Pain compliant, you sit him in a car. Hot summer night, my hand slipped. He bit my finger. I thought my finger was coming off. Animalistic when you get bit. I cannot tell you what happened the next 10 seconds. The cameras we got could tell you what happens. Absolutely beat the brakes off this dude. I was relieved of duty for 9 months. Took my badge away, took my gun away, ended up was going to be terminated. If this happened today, I would have been fired, probably in imprisoned. Beat the brakes off a handcuffed suspect. I lost my identity. I was a cop. That's all I knew. I was an inner city street cop. I was the baddest dude in the world. Ask me, I'll tell you, right? In my own mind. Lost all my identity. Best thing that ever happened to me, because I survived it. I got my life back together. I learned how to process through some things, met my new wife. Not being a cop, I learned how to be a better father, learned how to be a better, son, boyfriend at the time. And I went up in front of the chief, and the chief spared me. He gave me a suspension, 120-hour suspension, forfeited about $7,000. Wasn't, although a hard time in my life, I now realized I was wrong, right? No matter what he did, I shouldn't have acted like that. But the FOP was with me the whole time, and they weren't there to cover anything up. They were just there. Hey, brother, you are going through it. I'm going to go through this with you. And every step in that process, I had the union with me. And it was literally, for me, it was just giving back. So when this happened afterwards, the president's like, hey, we need some help selling some tickets to events. Hey, I'll do that. Every job they ever asked me to do to give back for all they did to me, brother, that's how I got cranking. And that's how I got involved.
Yeah. And I mean, we've been blessed to take part in the Army Navy game event, and I knew about the FOP. I never knew, I'm not in that culture, but what you do. But like the times I've been there and seen what the union and then the union folks do for each other is amazing. I mean, I haven't seen that side, but I'm just talking about charities and giving to local things. It's a huge, it's a very powerful thing to see. That you see a police officer that's struggling with cancer or something. You guys giving money, and like you got
cancer, we got your back. Your wife left you, we got your back. You shoot somebody and justifiably, and because of rogue prosecutors, imprison you. Hey, we're paying your mortgage. We're making sure your kids are not going out. I tell my guys as the president, I can't promise what's going to happen to you. I can't promise you an outcome. Just we're going to be here every step of the way. And again, and that's not bad cops. The one thing I want to get, we do not cover bad cops. I told you, I not only will I kick out of the union, I probably kick the shit out of you too first. That's not what we do. And that's one of the biggest misconceptions.
So here's a tough question.
Yeah.
So that incident, were you a bad cop in that incident?
It was a mistake of the mind, not of the heart. I didn't go out there thinking, I'm going to go police brutality that day. I had a bad reaction to a bad incident. It was a mistake of the mind. And I realized, and I worked through some things. So
explain that a bit more so people don't know what that means. Mistake of the heart.
Mistake of the heart is you truly made a mistake, right? If a kid eats a cookie before dinner when you told him not to, mistake of the mind, right? Mistake of the heart is you just did something. You banged another cop's wife. You stole money. You protected drug dealers. We've had guys in the FOP do all those members, and we've not represented them. Mistake of the mind is, again, you should have punched him. You should have tased him once. You tased him twice. Why? Well, because I had a high adrenaline dump. I just ran 50 yards. I pulled the trigger twice. I probably shouldn't have. These are things we could work through. Maybe training, maybe a suspension. Does not mean you should be terminated.
Yeah. I've heard that too. It's funny how it's so funny to have these conversations with people, because I just had a conversation with somebody about this like 4 days ago, that same topic using a different way. So let's talk about, you've done this for 25 years. You might be leaving here soon. What do you love? I mean, I think you already covered. I was going to ask you what you love about the FOP, but I think you've already said that.
It's taking care of others. And what I love now, and I'm a lieutenant now. I try to work the street when I can. I try to, when there's opportunities available over time, I try to jump in, even as a lieutenant, where I could sit in an office and do nothing. A couple weeks ago, I jumped in with a young officer. I asked the sergeant, hey, guys, hey, can I ride with one of you guys for a little bit? And I truly love that. I won my election by at least 75%. I don't have to do any of that. I could sit in an office next couple of years and put my feet up, but it's not who I am. I love to be out there just to be with that young officer and hear his story and talk to him. And we patrolled the same precinct, just a decade apart. That's the stuff I love to do. So
what's the reaction to you when you're in there? The lieutenant's right with them.
So, most guys know me as Steel, and if they usually, when a lieutenant walks in or a commander or something, you're kind of like, I want to talk about. Most of them know me as the FOP guy, so I
They're
think they're
like,
a little
"Oh,
more
fuck, I don't want-"
comfortable.
You're like,
Yeah.
you got steel on you.
Yeah, I like to think they'd be like, "Oh, hey, it's just steel here." And
But it's gotta be the same in the military, because I used to always think like the
Yeah.
guys will always love to have you around. Like, oh, they love having me around. Then they're like, no, they really don't.
Yeah,
They don't really like you to be around for certain things. But
Listen.
I get it, to get to know. I mean, that's important. I get to know. I mean, because obviously you're, as long as your career, then all the things you've done. I mean, the times have changed, right? So like you got to understand what the cops are, what their mentality is, what the things they're dealing with, if you're going to ultimately represent them. That's an important thing. I mean,
you can't lead a cop if you can't do his job.
Yeah.
I can't stand up there and say, "Hey, the cops today, this is what they're doing," if I have no idea. So, and that's why I do it.
So weird question. You've been pretty open. So if you could go back in time and talk to young Marine SEAL or young police officer SEAL with no E.
Yeah.
What would you tell a younger version of yourself?
I would have said definitely do better in school. Kind of look towards the med school or something like that. When people say, "Why'd you become a cop?" I always say med school wasn't in the cards, man. I would have gave my parents a little more grace. I think I would have gave myself a little more grace. Not been so hard. Not been such a dick to some people. But
we can't go back in time, though, right?
Yeah, no, you can't. Again, just move forward. It's in my rear view, man.
So we'll transition to the mental health part of it. Get a little more deep. You've been open to that. So you talked about what happened to you in 2009. Everything else, growing up. Like, I mean, would you say that you suffered with some, that incident, other times with some PTS and stuff like that? And if you have, what how'd you deal with it, and what kind of advice would you give somebody who's in the thick of it now?
So I like to talk about adversity, and I push this with my kids, and I talk about resiliency, the ability to bounce back quickly to something bad to happen to you. I think that's what separates people that are successful in this world, whether it's your son at baseball or studying for a test. Some kids are good students and they get an F on a test, right? And crumbles them. Well, buddy, bounce back. Why'd you get an F? Probably lack of preparation, lack of studying. Bounce back. It's not a big deal. Then again, the adversity I went through when I was suspended, I was also passed over for a promotion. So I could have went two routes. I could have just been bitter Brian, and I hate this job and I got screwed. And instead I said, you know what? Hey, I effed up. And that's what I told the chief. I messed up. I'm at your mercy. You know what I mean? And then went on and took the promotion test again and got promoted. Then went and took another one and got promoted. Never let it kind of hold me back. So I just think resiliency is the biggest thing. And then maybe some people aren't kind of grasping at as much as they should, or maybe we have to push that a little more, right? Yeah. Bounce back, man. Quick as you can.
Yeah, no, I agree with resilience support, but I think, when you talked about failure, right? So like, I'm guilty of it too, right? Like everything's like, you don't want your kids to fail. My wife still asks my sons about grades.
Yeah.
Like, as long as they're not like, I only care because I don't want you to fail to school, but like,
sure.
If you got to see that's going to be your problem. At it's your own thing. But I think in today's culture, it's like to get to see if you have resiliency, to build resiliency, you have to fail. And sure. I think in society now, there's like kids can't fail. Like, and it's not even just the kids. It's like a kid goes out and does something and they fail a test. And all of a sudden there's something wrong with the kid. And it's just this deep thing. You can't, and there's that pressure of like, it's not okay to not be okay. Right. Like, it's not, it's okay not to have a good day. Like, we're not perfect. You're not going to pass every class. You're not going to get every job. You're not going to treat every situation the right way. I think, that, and I don't know if that's, ties into it. I've always, when you talk about resiliency, I try to think about like how the fuck my kids have failed. And if I really think about it, I'm like, I could tie in like going to play college athletics and it doesn't, you don't end up, you're not the best athlete anymore. And you don't play all 4 years and you're not, great. Is that failure? But like, I kind of look at like my boys, I don't know what they've really failed at,
Yeah. And that's awesome. And
well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, could it be or could it be? Cause like when something does hit, like,
yeah, maybe they hit that adversity when they're 60 and that's the first time they ever hit it. Maybe you want to hit it earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I was kind of in my dark time in 2009, I remember my old man saying, "You're not doing good, are you, kid?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Are you at rock bottom?" I said, "I'm at rock bottom again. No badge, no gun, suspended. Grandma died. No wife. Don't see my kids." And he said, he goes, "The best part about it," he goes, "You're in a good place." I go, "How's that possible?" And he goes, "Rock bottom is a firm platform to get on your feet and stand back up." And I was like, "Damn, dude." Like, I remember that to this day.
I mean, think about all the crappy things he said, and he threw
Sure.
Golden nugget like that, you know?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's that emotional roller coaster, man. You and Guy looks like we had the same.
Yeah.
Same
And back to resiliency, I think it's huge. Just hear people always talk about is like, yeah, dude, like, I mean, we're pretty open about talking about suicide, and, I had suicide ideology. I've had a couple of times where, I wasn't going to do it, but, went through the whole process,
Sure.
But, it's a temporary solution to, it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yep.
That's where the resistance comes from. Like all these things you see, like it's the message to anybody, like you can come back from anything. You really can. And that's the hard thing to really understand. And that's what people think, like there's one bad thing happens, it automatically done, because it was me, the things when I made mistakes, the major things that I did, I was fucking like, I labeled myself, I was like, I'm the worst human being. And like, and looking back at it now, it's like, man, people like nobody was judging me the way I was judging myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's the big thing. Is like the resiliency. You can come back from anything. I mean, your story could have been completely different, right? It could have been this happened. You lose your career, all this kind of stuff. You could have, taken your life, and it'd be a whole different vibe.
What's interesting though, so your PTS is just that. It's post. Did you feel like this when you were in serving, or just when you got out?
No, I mean, there's some times when it started to happen. I mean, I always knew, like, you talk about PTS. I knew something wasn't right. I knew I didn't process. I didn't process things the right way. I mean, there's situations that you saw, for me, you'd see like how you were comfortable in situations you weren't supposed to be in, like, like adrenaline. Like I had this long time, like dangerous situations. Like it's hard to explain. Like I wasn't worried about it. Like it's no big fucking deal. Like it was like, but you start to learn that, like, I mean, there was all these signs that were happening, right?
Yeah.
When you start getting like the isolate, like, not caring if I'm alive, isolating, like starting to, become a workaholic, drinking a lot, like all these things to numb. Like I was just trying to, I was, avoiding situations. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, it was going on, but I just didn't know. I mean, a lot of times I didn't know what to look for. Right. Yeah. I wasn't, and a lot of it, like what I did look for, I just denied it. That was me, man. I was in denial for a long time that I had PTS. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people, especially my dad and my wife would be like, just go talk to somebody. It would start a huge fucking fight. I'm perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with me. And then, I'd come down here and, drink a half a bottle of bourbon and feel sorry for myself. And then drunk call Josh and tell him how much I love him and all this kind of shit. So, I mean, it was going on for a long time. I mean, it's all stuff that, when you eventually, now where I'm at now, I think I'm more open to it because I explore, right? I don't try to shut that door when I feel something's come up in the past that I'm having that, I'm open to it. I mean, I let it be, I mean, I am finding for me though, like I just feel, I'm able to recognize what I didn't see then and not even not recognize what I wasn't looking for. I just declined to just ignore it. I mean, if whatever that feeling came up, I would, I'd find something else. Like I got into a big phase of like doing triathlons, Ironman triathlons. Man, I spent a lot of fucking time just like beating the shit out of myself, like hours by myself, doing all this kind of stuff. And the whole time, it was physically great, but I was escaping life. I mean, I could get on a bike and ride a bike for, 6 hours, what I mean? And then go run and just be like, 10 hours of my day would be working out. And guess what? I didn't have to be a parent. I didn't have to be a husband. I was running away from stuff, I mean? And people are like, oh, it's great. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's something great about it. And there's nothing wrong with it. There was part of it, but if you never know an Ironman, it's a lot of, you're by yourself, what I mean? And you don't have to deal with that shit. And then everyone's like, oh, it's okay. Oh, he can't be here because he's doing that. Yeah. But I was just avoiding my life, what I mean?
How are you adrenaline? You adrenaline guy? Did you feed off that? Especially,
I still do,
yeah. And adrenaline is I would say the greatest drug or the most addictive drug. I mean, you chase that.
Yeah. And I mean, for me too, the adrenaline part was, I'm getting older. So like, the adrenaline isn't, but I still love it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still, I can get fired up. Like, but yeah, I mean, it's but that's, that's what was comfortable for me, more of like, like you talked about like dopamine, like my internal drug hit was fucking Like I'm a fucking gossip queen, bro. Like I used to fucking,
that's right.
I love gossip, man.
Little chatty
Like
Cathy.
you didn't even know, dude. I love it, man. My shtick used to be like, man, tell me what you're doing. Tell me all the things you're doing, because then I like, honestly, man, when you were telling me, I'd be like, yeah, man, I'm fucked up, and I'm not as fucked up as Brian.
Yeah,
I'm not even close to being fucked up as Josh. And then honestly, I'd use his ammunition. Like when you didn't do what I wanted you to do, I'd turn on you. Like, and Josh is. It's amazing to have him sitting there, because he's seen me like probably my worst about it, and then probably to a different person where I'm now. But I fucking got off on that, man. That was my whole shtick, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's better than alcohol, you know what I mean? Like, tell me how your life isn't going well. Tell me what you did. I used to love, tell me.
Yeah.
I mean, but now I just don't have that. I don't give a fuck anymore. I don't like, I don't get any thrill from it. I don't like, I mean, parts of me, like, you know, if I have to, like, you know, I talk to other safe men and just, you know, talk about where we couldn't get up, but I'm not anymore in that business of, you know, and that whole thing was to make myself feel better.
Yeah.
Like and then when you're around people, like, that's the best thing. Like when you're fucked up and I know that you're fucked up, I can always be like, I'm not as fucked up as you. That was a huge thing. That got me through my life. You know? And then when somebody would call me on my shit, I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Did you hear what Brian said he did in 2009? Like that's how my mind used to be. And it just was internally I was just beating the shit out of myself, you know what I mean?
So it's interesting. The reason I ask you like the PTS, if it was during or after. So I think when we talk about suicides, especially police suicides, you think like hey, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to shoot myself stuff. But I think we have there's a different kind of like suicide attempts in policing, and that's like when you said you don't care. Like, hey, I'm going to chase this car. I'm going to do a $130 because I'm in such a miserable place. If I crash, I don't give a shit.
That was me.
Right?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah.
Or you're probably maybe not very safe, whether you're running to a house overseas or here in policing, you're chasing armed gunmen into a crack house. Like, hey, if I go out, I'm going to get a great funeral because I don't care anyway. And I think that's something that a lot of police have faced. I know certainly there's times in my career, and we said, oh man, he's a good cop. Oh, he's brave. And looking back as I'm older, I'm like, I wasn't brave. It was the dumbest thing I've done. And probably I was at the point where I did not care if I got shot, you know. And I could definitely, I've changed over the years. Maybe as you got older, now that I'm inside more, maybe I'm just a declawed kitten now, you know. And the joke is, hey, when something dangerous happens, it's kind of a joke. Hey, that's why we got the new kid. Hey, new kid, get up here. You know, you make entry in a house, we'll be right behind you. But you know, some of that's a rite of passage for the new kid.
We're right behind you.
Yeah, right behind you, bud. As I'm bunkered down. Some of it's a rite of passage. I
would stay behind that shield.
Yeah, I remember being the new kid though, and them saying, "Hey, your senior guys are like, get in there," you know.
No, but yeah, I mean, I'm making a joke about that shit, but it's you said like me was like I knew I was never gonna like, you know, I went through the routine, right? But there's a part of me like I couldn't do that, but I was the guy like I can't tell you I'd be like, man, if I just fucking gun this car right now and just drilled into that thing. I didn't give a fuck. Like I look like there'll be an accident. They won't think I, you know, because I had it, you know, I still have it that like when the suicide thing they would win, but I was in a slow. I didn't care. I didn't care about living. I was like, you know, I didn't take care of myself. You know, the main thing was taking care of myself mentally. I was just beating the shit out of myself. I didn't care. I wasn't present. I was doing all these things, and that's when, you know, nothing. When you're there, nothing. That's when I asked you a question: what is not working in your life? That wasn't working for me.
Yeah.
You know, that was just making me miserable. I wasn't being the person I want to be. And like, you know, and for me, the big thing was, like you said before, that is that you had for me, like, you know, not being in the military, like, you know, going into corporate America and doing that kind of stuff. Like I had a huge identity problem with that. You know, like I had like a huge identity thing for a long time, being like, especially you get older. And like now, like I'm comfortable with my identity is right. My identity is not, you know, I've made declarations of who I am. Right. So my declaration has nothing to do with my responsibilities as a father, husband anymore. It just has to be like, I want to be loved. I want to be happiness. I want to be a brother. And you know, how that now in the world is like, I can be that, right?
Yeah.
I can choose to be anything I want to be, right? I can declare it to be, and then act it. And that's what I choose to be. So I don't struggle with my identity anymore. I'm not like, I'll always be a father. Hopefully I'll always be a husband. But I mean, the world needs people that, like the world needs men that are loved, that can be loved, that can be happiness, and like you can give back to their fellow brothers and sisters,
And you talk about being authentic, and I think that's something important. I try to be as authentic as I can, and I'm a firm believer. You're either going to gravitate towards me, and I have people to gravitate towards me, and I have guys that pull so far away from me because they want nothing to do with it. And I say I'm okay with either one of them.
Yeah,
you know. And I think in my role and what I do for a living, I'm probably one of the most loved or hated guys. There's dudes that wouldn't piss on me if I was on fire. My own members can't stand me, the cut of my jib, and there's other guys that are like, bro, I love so much what you're doing. Like I said, and they're both okay. I used to want to please people, right?
Yeah.
And probably one of the reasons I got into this role, like, oh, I want to be the guy, I want everybody to like me. You can't be the FOP president and have friends with everybody. You can't lead and make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that was one of the biggest things I tried to work through. But now, as a leader in the FOP, I just try to make the best decision I can to help our guys. And hey, listen, I'm going to be criticized by somebody, and I'm under the philosophy of you ain't in the field, right? Like it's easier to criticize from the bleachers than the guy in the arena. So that's how I sleep at night. And I try to tell some of our newer guys that'll come to me with like, hey, you know, we did this and this guy's upset. And I'm like, bro, did you do the best you can? Did you help guys? Did you purely do? You're going to fall short somewhere. Who cares? And I truly couldn't care anymore.
Yeah, we talked about it. I mean, I'm big on that too. Like you know, if you don't like me, that's okay. I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way. I don't make you wrong, but I'm just who I am. And like, I'm going to be who I am, going to be moving on the best I can. And if that doesn't work for you, I'm the same way you like, and these are all like, I love that you talk about these because all these things that we learned as young children dealing with trauma that, you know, we want to be people pleasers because when we please people, it usually was a good thing for us. We got rewards and all kind of stuff. But I'm now like, you know, people don't like me. I'm okay with that. For a long time, I cared too much about it. Like this person doesn't like me, that person, and I don't care anymore.
You'd probably do anything for them still. There's guys I would do anything for. There's guys that have actively tried to destroy my image, reputation. I had some frivolous complaints made against me, and it's funny. One of the guys that recently made a complaint against me now needs the FOP's help, and you know what I said? Give him everything we'd give anybody else. Do not care.
Mean, I'm not saying it wouldn't help anybody, but I'm just saying there's I'd have to define what the help means. I mean, like, but I'm not like I said, I don't have, like, I used to, like, the people didn't like me or like they didn't, like I had ill will, I made them wrong. Like I just talked about before, I don't do that anymore. If I don't like you, you don't like me, that's fine. Or you don't like, it's okay. It's all right. I'm not gonna, it's not a big deal. Like, you know what I mean? Like if I'm not your cup of tea, that's fine. I'm okay with that.
But if that guy was choking on a scallop, you'd probably Heimlich him or call 911.
No, that's a different. But I just choose not to be around those folks. So I guess one last question. We're rolling along. It went pretty quick. We didn't have our second pour.
Where are we
We'll
at?
have it after. We'll have it
already.
So, we're hitting at the end of it. I think we'll hit it up with one more question here. It's a good one. So we did talk about it a little bit, but so a lot of we've been talking about it a lot, and you hit on it with resiliency, but. What do you think, in your opinion, the warrior class, the military, police, first responders, when it comes to mental health, what is the one thing that needs to be changed, either by the institution or society that you don't think is happening right now?
We are getting better. I think there's no way to say we're not getting better. And I could tell you when I came to the Police Academy in New Jersey, our suicide class, and I'll never forget the guy, this was our class. If you're going to shoot yourself, do your family and your department a solid and lay out your gun cleaning kit so we can call it an accident. And then they talked about something else. Right. That was it. Now, at least in the police department, we're sending guys to save a warrior heart, Harbor of Grace for the firemen. We have PAT, EAP. We have all these programs. The FOP, we're putting guys with mental health issues, with addiction issues. We're throwing them on planes like we never did before. And we're treating it as an illness, which it is. When I came on, if you marked off stress, PTSD, anxiety, your badge and gun was immediately removed. That's the first thing they did. Not because they didn't want you to kill yourself. The division didn't want you to kill yourself with the division gun. And I remember years ago, I was an advocate against that. I said, buddy, so you don't care if he shoots himself with a shotgun, but just not with our company gun. And I like to think I was one of a bunch who advocated to change that. So now if you mark off PTS, something like that, you're not automatically relieved of duty. And it's not the stigma it once was. So we are definitely getting better. We just have to keep that. Now, the separate side is and I see in my job a little bit, and then on the pension board, I always want to look for anybody abusing it. I'm on the pension board now. at the FOP, we fought for PTS to be a condition of retirement for burial workers comp. Well, now on the pension board, we're seeing, well, hey, if you want to retire, just throw PTS on there, and then you'll get an extra 20%. And me and one of my counterparts on the board from the fire department, you think we would be, a little more open. We're some of the hardest guys, because I'll listen to some guy tell a sob story that he saw a dead kid once and now he wants a full retirement. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, dude. Maybe this job wasn't for you. And maybe, I'm just being the dick. Right. But I hate to see abuse in anything, or guys doing whatever they want and being like, oh, I got PTS, so that's why I got to beat my wife, and you should protect me, FOP. And I'm like, bro, that's not what we do. Yeah. Like, we'll get you your help, but if you beat your wife and knock out her tooth, we're going to get you the help, and then you're going to jail, right? And this FOP is not helping you. So again, we're opening up more, but we got to be careful and not make sure this is something that the guys are just using just to make an excuse. Yeah,
and in your department, I mean, we talked about Jake. Jake's running the wellness. He runs the whole wellness class for new recruits coming in, and that's huge too. I think. I mean, if you talk about, I haven't sat through that class, but knowing Jake, I think it's got to be a lot more in depth than your original one that you got.
Jake Day's book club, right? Did we talk about that? Oh. The Jake Day book club. So Jake is one of the best people I ever met, but he's known as the Jake Day book club because anytime he gives a class, he always has the Jake Day book of the week. Dude, I'm telling you, I meet with Jake every Sunday. We were on there and we talk about, we dissect salt of the earth, dude.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and it's just like, I mean, he's like the stuff he has to say. It's he knows this, and he helped save my life, and he does have he does have a lot of books. He likes the books, so we all read a book now and talk about the chapters. And so
you're in the book club. But I'll tell you this with PTS.
The book club is powerful, man. When you get into some stuff, because it's the what's interesting about that approach to it, the book club, right? Yeah. And it's real. It's like talking about it, like the real part about like of all the shit that they're talking about, how to get through resiliency, like how to deal with all this stuff. It's fucking in the books, man. It's out there. It's been in the universe for a long time. You just have to search and find it. Like there's things you can look at. There's great guys like, and he loves Peterson too, Jordan Peterson. Jake's favorite. Yeah. But you look and you read some stuff. Like now, when I look at stuff that I've always liked to read, but when I look at stuff and I look at it from a different lens, I'm like, holy shit. Like this stuff is out there. It's in books that have been thousands years old, and you just look at it and you read it. You look at some of the stuff, the Bible. I mean, there's all these things that are out there. You just have to be looking for it, and when you start looking for it, that's when these changes happen in your life, right? When you start seeing this, and you're like, holy cow, that's kind of what the book club's about. Yeah, and we're not facing anything new. I mean, people have been not at all battles and these struggles and forever. Man, this was awesome. So, what do you think out of 1 to 10? Worst, best? Of yours, yeah. You didn't drink a lot, and I'm joking. Yeah. I try not to rate them. They're all great. Yeah. Okay, as long as you have, you have to rate it because I'm more concerned. Well, I was going to worry, like I was just putting people to sleep. Environment? So. You got great food. This is whiskey. I'll give you a gift. Everybody sees it. You get a gift after. Yeah. We've never done the gift live ever before. Yeah, it's kind of a private thing. Listen. Other than from him with his pants off, that makes me a little uncomfortable. I think this has been Josh over there in his Speedo because he's an accountant. He's celebrating. Hey, Josh, it's okay from you. No, no, it's long. All I care about is that you guys have a good time. I mean, and like we talked about before, a lot of people have come in and they're worried about the same things I worried about when I started it. It's just about having a conversation, a true conversation. I can't thank you enough for being honest. Like, I mean, you've been super honest with him. That's awesome. I mean, talk about what happened to you in 2009 and a lot of people would just not want to talk about, that. So I thank you for that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your service to the country, your service to the communities you served as a police officer, Columbus, the places in New Jersey, and also more importantly now, your service to fellow police officers here in Columbus. So, thank you, brother. Thanks for those questions. Those were great. That's some stuff, almost 47 years of the world, no one's ever asked me. So thanks for giving me a chance to talk about some of that. It's all chat GPT. I'm kidding. It's a joke. No. But yeah, so what we'll do here is we're going to close it tonight with my not so favorite part of each podcast. Tonight we're going to honor U.S. Marine Corps Sergeant Taylor Lane Wilson, 32. Taylor was born June 3rd, 1986 in Montgomery, Alabama. Taylor took his life on June 19th, 2018 in Jacksonville, North Carolina. After graduating from high school in 2004, Taylor was accepted to the University of Auburn, but instead joined the United States Marine Corps. Taylor served 3 deployments abroad, including Al-Assad, Aqim, Iraq in 2006, on the USS Nimitz in 2007, and in Al-Assad again in 2019. At the time of his death, Taylor was stationed at Marine Corps Aviation Station, New River in Jacksonville, North Carolina. Taylor was a hugger, a lover, a fighter, a father, and best friend. He had a huge heart for his family and his friends. Taylor never met a stranger because he loved to talk to people and had a generous sense of humor. Taylor effortlessly made others feel special, and the people who met him throughout his life remembered this most about him. Taylor loved sports, particularly football and baseball, and loved the Daphne Trojans, Auburn Tigers, Atlanta Braves, Carolina Panthers, and the Cleveland Cavaliers. He was a lover of cheese, gumbo, and hot sauce. Taylor is survived by his wife, Nina, son, Gabriel, parents, John and Dawn, sister, Samantha, brother and sister-in-law, Daniel and Rebecca, grandparents, Paul and Elaine, and numerous other relatives, friends, and Marine Corps family. And if you or someone you know is considering suicide, please contact the Veterans Crisis Hotline at 988 or 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255, or you can now chat online at veterancrisisline.net/chat. Just a couple other plugs here for some of our fellow organizations we support, just like the FOP. We like to support upcoming events for you, but we had a couple weeks ago, our Stockhand friends, there's still tickets available for the Heroes Ball. If you haven't been to that, it's huge.
I'll be there.
Yeah,
Yep.
you get to see Brain Steel up there.
Yeah.
But it's a great event, local here. And if you've never been to the center, it's one of the most beautiful places that are around here. It's a great event. So there are tickets available April 26, 2025, still sponsorship opportunities available. And then also the nominations are still open. So if there's someone that you would like to get recognized as a hero in the state of Ohio, please get those nominations in. They'd love to hear them. So, and just a final note, the Ports with Patriot schedule's moving along. We have some openings coming up for the year. We're getting full, but we got some folks coming in from out of town here. I'm pretty excited. We're actually, we just added a gentleman named Brett Casey, a former paratrooper. He's coming here to see us in July. His grandfather was actually the last living Medal of Honor winner from World War II.
Wow.
So excited. He's a listener and is going to come see us and drive up from Louisville. So looking forward. But again, anybody who you think would make a great guest, contact us. If you want to come on, get a hold of us. It's a good event. Good food, right? You agree?
Oh, hell yeah. No, it's great. Yeah.
But other than Josh and his underwear, it's a different thing. So
I'm trying not to look over there. No, it was awesome.
We have a camera up there. We can make sure. But again, from my bottom of my heart, thank you for coming on. I do want to thank you for you guys' support of Ports of Patriots, FOP. It means a lot to us. It's an event that we love going to. I mean, I wasn't really happy about this year's ending, but it's okay.
No, thank
Great
you.
event. And like I said before, anytime you guys need something, put out there on the internet, let us know. We'd love to support it. It's a great event.
Same. We're going to keep supporting you guys and everything. And thanks for honoring our phone. Yeah.
And if there's any other FOP members that want to come on, please come on out. We don't bite. It's not too painful. You had a good time, right? It wasn't as bad as you thought.
No, it was awesome. Awesome.
But and I do want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for coming on and sharing your story, but also for your service to the community and the nation. So
yeah, you too, brother.
We will
thank you so much.
I think we'll end it with our final quote, because Josh thought I wasn't going to do it. He always doesn't like when I forget a quote, but kind of ties into both policing and the Marine Corps. But this is from President Ronald Reagan: "Evil is powerless if the good are unafraid." So I thought that was good. We'll end episode 73 with that. We'll see everyone in a couple weeks, and everyone have a great night. Thanks.